Chapter 359 Feng Wu the Scapegoat. Chapter 359. Feng Wu the Scapegoat. Yin said earnestly, "Cousin, I'm telling the truth. Ask Feng Lu if you want." Feng Lu nodded. "I was acting as bait with Yin, so that Feng Wu would give herself away. I bet you'll find Feng Wu somewhere around your vault." In order to frame Feng Wu, the servants would make sure that they found her in that general direction. Yin and Feng Lu made sure of it. Despite the earlier episode, the two of them were working together again. That made the others wonder. Was it possible that Feng Wu wanted to steal from the Yin family? However, what was here that was worth stealing? Sir Yin only found Feng Lu and Yin ridiculous. It didn't take a genius to figure out how far-fetched Yan's accusation was. However, Yin was his daughter after all, and he couldn't have her accused of harming her father's concubine. Sir Yin didn't mind if Feng Wu could be incriminated instead. As for Feng Wu's own future, after all, she was a good-for-nothing, and to make it up to her, he would give Feng that assistant minister position. At that thought, Sir Yin reached into his sleeve. All of a sudden, he blanched. "My key is gone." Sir Yan's pupils contracted. He was only going to make a show of it, pretending to have lost his key. However, he realized that his key was really gone. He broke into a cold sweat right away. All eyes were on Sir Yin. He was sweating. What a great actor. However, they still played along and asked Sir Yin, "What key?" "The key to my vault." The corner of Sir Yan's mouth twitched. "I have it on me all the time. But it's not here." Feng Wu took it. Yin bolted to her feet and her face lit up. She knew perfectly well that Feng Wu wasn't capable enough to take that key from her father, but she couldn't care less about that rationale now. She would make it stick. Yin said loudly, "Feng Wu pushed us toward Lady Tang deliberately, and father, didn't you walk past her then? You were so concerned about Lady Tang that you became distracted. Feng Wu took that key when you weren't paying attention to your sleeve. She's so cunning." Yin would never have been clever enough to come up with such a speech. Zuo Qingluan had fed it to her word by word. At that moment, Yin had never felt more excited. She knew that it wasn't true, but her family would make sure it became the truth. As for the Feng clan, well, Feng was their current leader and he was Feng Lu's father. Between a daughter and a niece, of course he would sacrifice the latter. Feng had a habit of sitting on the fence, and he valued his personal gain above all else. He was the first to switch sides when his own interests were concerned. He took the hint from Yan's words right away, and saw that his ideal choice was to give Feng Wu up. "Feng Wu." Feng put on an angry face and said in a regretful voice, "She used to be such a nice girl. I never expected that she would become this narrow-minded after she was crippled." Lady Wang chimed in right away. "It's not your fault. After all, they've been staying in northern border city all this time and you weren't able to give her guidance. I'm afraid we've lost that old Feng Wu. How sad." Chapter 360 His Royal Highness is here. Chapter 360. His Royal Highness is here. Not only did Lady Wang confirm Feng Wu's inferior moral character, she also took the chance to blame the beautiful lady for it. How cunning. Feng cupped his hands at Yin Shifan. "Sir Yin, the Feng clan is ashamed to have a daughter like Feng Wu. I'm afraid that she's too unruly for me to discipline. Please feel free to do whatever you see fit to her. I will have no objections." Sir Yin only smirked and said nothing. Yin and Feng Lu exchanged looks and both saw satisfaction in each other's eyes. Yin held Zuo Qingluan's hand tight, feeling utterly grateful for the latter's help. Zuo Qingluan was so clever. For the brief speech he had come up with not only cleared Yin and Feng Lu of all accusations, but pushed all the blame on Feng Wu. That girl would never be able to clear her name, and she would be condemned by the public. Feng Wu was doomed. Zuo Qingluan smiled a little and cheered inwardly. She hadn't expected Feng Wu to be this vulnerable to attack. Feng Wu, on the other hand, had no idea of all the things happening in the main hall. After failing to open that lock, she took a detour and returned via another route. Everyone was eyeing her in a suspicious and unfriendly way when she walked in. Feng Wu could distinctly detect that change in their attitudes. "Where did you find Miss Feng Wu?" Yin asked the steward. The steward, who had been taught what to say, replied, Miss Wu was near Moon Tower when we found her. And Moon Tower was very close to the vault. Feng Wu, what other excuse do you have now? Yin Yan's face twisted and she raised her pointy chin in an arrogant manner. Feng Wu frowned a little. She turned to Feng Sun, asking with her eyes what was going on. Feng Sun said indignantly, Yin Yan is framing you for stealing Sir Yan's key, and saying that you're going to rob their vault. Your uncle has also said that he would let Sir Yan punish you as he saw fit. Feng Wu frowned and gave Yin Yan an indecipherable look. The girl had actually told the truth. It was just that she hadn't expected Feng Wu to come back voluntarily after failing to open the door. However, Feng Wu couldn't help but dart Feng Yanfeng a look. Her uncle was really an expert at trimming his sails. He had been planning to offer Feng Wu to Jun Linyuan as a concubine just earlier today, but now he had sold her off just to save Feng Lu and get himself the job he wanted. Feng Wu smirked inwardly and lowered her gaze, letting her dense eyelashes shield the glint in her eyes from everyone else. Yin Yan should have known better. The fact that Feng Wu had dared to leave the hall meant that she had a backup plan. Feng Wu was anything but stupid. Feng Wu, tell everyone now. Why were you around Moon Tower? Yin Yan said aggressively. Feng Wu frowned and was about to reply when a hubbub of excited voices came from outside. All hail His Royal Highness. His Royal Highness. Everyone was dumbfounded. As in Jun Linyuan. He was like the most dazzling star in the sky. He was too superior and unattainable to even dream of getting close to. Attending the same event as the Crown Prince was something worth boasting about for 3 years. His Royal Highness is here. Even an experienced and level-headed bureaucrat like Sir Yan couldn't help but get flustered. Fearing that his ears had failed him, he asked again, His Royal Highness? As in the Crown Prince? Prince Jun Linyuan? Chapter 361 Feng Wu would rather not see Jun Linyuan here. Chapter 361. Feng Wu would rather not see Jun Linyuan here. A junior steward nodded. Yes, it's His Royal Highness himself. And he's come with his official guard of honor, saying that they're here to celebrate our old lady's birthday. Since when was the Yen Manor important enough for the Crown Prince to pay a visit himself? Everyone was dumbfounded. Was the Yen family about to get lucky? Sir Yan shook with excitement. Lifting the lower hem of his robe off the floor, he dashed out the door. Many officials were here today for the birthday banquet and they all dashed out after Sir Yan. Before long, the yard was filled with prostrating officials. Those that had been smirking at and talking about Feng Wu a moment ago had forgotten all about her. They were too busy going down on their knees. The officials knelt down on the left, and their wives did so on the right. Yin Yan and Feng Lu stayed together, and right now, Yin Yan was chirping like a happy bird inwardly. Jun Linyuan hardly ever visited any officials. Why was he here at the Yin Manor today? Who was he here for? After racking her brain, Yin Yan arrived at the conclusion that she herself was the reason. Because of that, she blushed like a rosy dawn and her eyes were frighteningly bright. Was the Crown Prince that into her? Gosh, she felt so shy at that thought. All eyes were fixed on Jun Linyuan when he walked in. He wore a black robe and had put on a glossy fur cape to fend off the draft. The outfit emphasized the distinguished air he was giving off. He walked at an unhurried but intimidating pace. He paid his lethal charisma no mind. There was an indecipherable look in his brooding eyes. And his expression was emotionless. A glance from those dark eyes felt like a sharp blade cutting into one's skin. Your Royal Highness. The officials didn't need to kneel in Jun Linyuan's presence. No one remembered who started it, but somehow everyone felt like going down on their knees whenever Jun Linyuan showed up. And they weren't even bold enough to look him in the eye. In all the years that the Junwu Empire had been established, this Crown Prince was one of a kind. Your Royal Highness, Sir Yan knelt down at the very front, his expression very solemn. The others also lowered their gazes deferentially, not daring to take a peek at the Crown Prince. However, Jun Linyuan's cold gaze had been fixed in just one direction since he walked in, and he also headed that way with a grim look on his face. Feng Wu frowned a little when she noticed that Jun Linyuan was coming her way. She had prepared several backup plans for different scenarios in advance for this occasion. That was why even after the successive false accusations by Yan Yan, Sir Yan, Feng Lu and Feng Yanfeng, she was able to remain unperturbed. However, Jun Linyuan wasn't part of Feng Wu's plan. Jun Linyuan, Feng Sun and Yu Minji, those three were like her natural enemies. Each time any one of them showed up, she would be forced to face a lot of unexpected complications. Before Feng Wu could react, Little Phoenix bolted up in the ring. It's him. Poor Bert. That first abnormal flame had been seized by Jun Rex and Feng Tutu, and the second one, which it had guarded with all its power, had been stolen by Jun Linyuan in the name of saving Feng Wu. Heh! Feng Wu couldn't even force a smile at that thought. Flames seemed to shoot out of her bright eyes. Jun Linyuan made a beeline for Feng Wu. Chapter 362 The Spectacular Duo. Chapter 362 The Spectacular Duo. A pair of long, straight legs stopped in front of Feng Wu, and Jun Linyuan stared at her with a face that was colder than frost. This ungrateful girl. Recalling her false accusation when all he had done was try to save her, Jun Linyuan was also angry. Therefore he just stood there, staring at Feng Wu. For a moment the entire yard seemed to be covered in frost, and the temperature dropped. Many looked up discreetly and tried to steal glances to see what was going on. That was weird. Why was the crown prince just standing there in front of Feng Wu? It was as if he was here just for her. Were they that close? The tall teenager had deep-set features and looked stunning. His aura reminded one of the most superior rulers. The slender teenage girl was a dazzling beauty whose charm could bring down an entire city. Standing there facing each other, they made the most stunning picture. When the wind blew, their clothes flapped in the air, giving them an ethereal feel. It was such a beautiful picture. Feng Lu, Yan Yan, Zuo Qingluan, and every other teenage girl in the yard found it an eyesore as they were all overwhelmed with jealousy. That was so frustrating. Sir Yan and Feng Yanfeng also exchanged looks. Sir Yan. Feng Wu and the Crown Prince. Feng Yanfeng, no way. Sir Yan. But if it really is the case, and Feng Wu tells the Crown Prince on us. Feng Yanfeng. We'll have to adapt to the circumstances then. Feng Yanfeng was already considering the possibility of Jun Linyuan standing up for Feng Wu. When that happened, he would have to think of a way to win Feng Wu back. While everyone was coming up with their own speculations, Jun Linyuan spoke in an arrogant and taunting voice. It's you. Again. Huh. That unmistakably impatient tone and contemptuous expression elated everyone in the yard. Feng Wu smirked. Shouldn't I be the one to say that? Jun Linyuan darted a haughty look at Feng Wu. You've been following me everywhere. Feng Wu, you just can't live without me. Wow. The way Jun Linyuan put it. It shocked everyone. The Crown Prince was as relentless as ever with his words. Did he just admit that Feng Wu wouldn't leave him alone? So Yin Yan was telling the truth. Feng Wu was such a shameless girl. Feng Wu almost choked at what Jun Linyuan said. For someone as level-headed as she was, she somehow always lost control when Jun Linyuan was around. Feng Wu took a deep breath. You're a creepy narcissist, did you know that? Jun Linyuan didn't let his face betray anything. He grabbed Feng Wu by her wrist. Come with me. After that, he dragged Feng Wu away. Let go of me. Feng Wu stumbled on her feet and almost fell. However, Jun Linyuan was way too powerful for her to fight back, and Feng Wu had no choice but to be dragged away. After they were a little distance away from the yard, Jun Linyuan looked down at Feng Wu. What do you want? I have no idea what you're talking about. Feng Wu raised her chin proudly. You wouldn't have come here for no reason. Jun Linyuan kept his gaze on her. What are you after? Feng Wu gritted her teeth and her eyes spat fire. The way she glared at Jun Linyuan reminded him of a grumpy little beast, which he found rather adorable. He almost felt like rubbing her head. Ahem. Jun Linyuan coughed into his fist and the look in his eyes was indecipherable. Tell me or I'll destroy anything you're after. Mark my words. Chapter 363 Jun Linyuan the Young Tyrant. Chapter 363 Jun Linyuan the Young Tyrant. That was pure blackmail, but Feng Wu realized that It was very effective. What's wrong with you? Feng Wu snapped. Do you enjoy picking on me that much? Jun Linyuan nodded sincerely. I do, actually. Especially when the girl bristled like a cat, but had to bend to his will. It was so much fun. Feng Wu took a deep breath. What was Jun Linyuan's problem? From what she knew of Jun Linyuan, she had no doubt that he would be relentless if he decided that he would sabotage everything she tried to do. I'm not telling you. The broken star piece. Feng Wu and Jun Linyuan spoke at the same time. Feng Wu's pupils contracted and she stared at Jun Linyuan as if she had seen a ghost. Jun Linyuan gloated. How did you know that? Feng Wu lowered her voice and asked through gritted teeth. The fact that he had mentioned the broken star piece meant that he was confident about his guess. Jun Linyuan gave her a casual glance as if he had just heard an idiotic question. Instead of replying, he went back without Feng Wu. The others were baffled by Jun Linyuan's attitude. Exactly what was the relationship between the Crown Prince and Feng Wu? It was so confusing. Boss Jun. Feng Sun ran up to Jun Linyuan cheerfully and said in a hurry, Boss Jun. Has little Feng Wu told you everything? Jun Linyuan darted a suspicious look at Feng Sun. Tell me what? Feng Sun smacked his own forehead. What was he thinking? Little Feng Wu and Boss Jun were never on friendly terms, and of course Boss Jun wouldn't help her. He must have lost his mind. At that thought, Feng Sun kept his gaze on Jun Linyuan. Boss Jun, you have to get it right for little Feng Wu this time. Or those people will frame her for everything. I'm going to help her anyway, so please just do it for me. Sir Yan almost exploded at Feng Sun's words. Had the boy forgotten that he was a relative of the Yan family? The way he put it, he was claiming that the Yan family was setting Feng Wu up. Exactly which side was he on? Jun Linyuan darted an indifferent glance at Feng Sun. Feng Sun, you should take a look at yourself in the mirror. Feng Sun said, whatever. You have to help little Feng Wu. All eyes were on the Crown Prince. Was he going to take Feng Wu's side? Jun Linyuan smiled coldly. Childish. The others let out breaths of relief. There was nothing between Jun Linyuan and Feng Wu, for he had refused to help her despite Feng Sun's pleading, which said a lot about how much he disliked the girl. Many of the teenage girls were relieved at Jun Linyuan's reaction. Feng showed up then with a luxurious armchair and put it down where the host's seat was. Jun Linyuan sat down matter-of-factly. And the others knelt again. Feng Wu was the only one standing. Feng Yanfeng thought he was going to have a heart attack. What was wrong with this brat? How could she still stand there? Feng Yanfeng kept shooting Feng Wu warning glances to the point of giving his eyelids cramps. However, Feng Wu still stood there as straight as a pine tree and as undisturbed as a secluded orchid in a deserted valley, like a winter plum tree. Feng Yanfeng almost choked on his own spit. Why did the Feng clan have such a stubborn girl? Jun Linyuan's cold gaze brushed past Feng Wu's stunning face and landed on Yan Shifan. Go on. What? Under Jun Linyuan's gaze, even Yan Shifan, the experienced bureaucrat, broke into a cold sweat. Chapter 364 Slay It. Chapter 364. Slay It. Feng said in an indifferent tone, Sir Yan, His Royal Highness is only here to observe. Please proceed as you see fit. He would be a bystander only and not take anyone's side. Sir Yan was relieved to learn Jun Linyuan's position on the matter. Yin Yan was desperate to show off in front of Jun Linyuan and she spoke first. After briefing Jun Linyuan on what had happened, she turned to Feng Wu, her eyes glinting. Tell us now. Why were you at Moon Tower when everyone else was here? What else could you be doing there if not trying to steal my family's treasure? Feng Wu had a brooding look in her eyes. She wasn't paying attention to Yin Yan's question, for she had a more pressing one herself. Why did Jun Linyuan know about the broken star piece? Had she let it slip somehow? How could he have guessed it? That guy was terrifyingly smart. Feng Wu. Feng Wu. Yin Yan kept her gaze on Feng Wu. Seeing that the latter's mind had wandered off, Yin Yan felt ignored and humiliated. Huh? What? Only then did Feng Wu come back to herself and look back at Yin Yan in bewilderment. Feng Wu's indifference only frustrated Yin Yan further. Feng Wu. Stop trying to avoid my question. The longer you stall, the more guilty you look. Yin said in an aggressive tone and tried to force Feng Wu to answer. Are you sure you want to hear my explanation? Feng Wu gave Yin a meaningful glance. Yin smirked. I see. You're not answering my question because you have no excuse at all. Feng Wu said grimly. Yin, keep pressing and you'll be the one crying after I tell the truth. Haha. Yin laughed as if she had heard the funniest joke. Feng Wu, you're the biggest hypocrite I've ever met. Please don't mind me. Just tell your story. Feng Wu darted a casual look at Sir Yan. Sir, are you sure you want to know the truth? Sir Yan's expression remained undisturbed, but his stomach lurched. That was strange. Hadn't Feng Wu lost her cultivation ability? Why did her casual glance feel like a dagger in Sir Yan's chest? It gave him goosebumps all over. Sir Yan was genuinely baffled. He then decided that it must have been an illusion. Keeping his cold gaze on Feng Wu, he said, Miss Wu, please feel free to tell us what you have to say. With His Royal Highness here as a witness, I promise you that everything will be fair and square. No one will blame you for anything you didn't do. Any other girl would be flustered by the attention from such a large crowd, but Feng Wu wasn't just any girl. Crossing her hands behind her back, she stood there ramrod straight and her limpid eyes sparkling. Turning her palm over, Feng Wu showed the crowd a cluster of green leaves covered with fine down. That's... Everyone looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. However, Yin was astonished. Her eyes spat fire as she glared at Feng Wu. Where did you get that dark netherworld dragon tongue grass? So, Miss Yin knows what this grass is. In contrast to Yan's exasperated tone, Feng Wu remained relaxed and unhurried. It seemed that she had everything under control. Yin smirked. Dark netherworld dragon tongue grass can strengthen one's health, especially pregnant women. It'll benefit the mother and baby both if they smell the grass on a regular basis. That's why a pot of dark netherworld dragon tongue grass was put in Lady Tang's yard. Feng Wu nodded. Yes. Chapter 365 A Set of Tricks. Chapter 365. A Set of Tricks. If that's the case, why do you question me for being around Moon Tower? Feng Wu darted a glance at Yin. Yin didn't know what to say. Everyone else was confused and Sir Yan asked with a frown, I sent Lady Tang that pot of grass. Is there a problem? Feng Wu smiled a little. Not with the grass itself, but... Miss Yen visited Lady Tang's yard a lot, didn't she? Feng Wu asked. Yes. Lady Tang wasn't here to answer that question and her maid replied for her. Keeping her gaze on Yin, she said, Miss Yen would come from time to time and she played with that dark netherworld dragon tongue grass a lot. We checked the soil in the pot afterward, but everything seemed all right. That was why we didn't think much of it. How stupid of you. Feng Wu snorted. Stupid. Everyone looked at Feng Wu in bewilderment. What was she talking about? Just when they thought that Feng Wu was going to give them an explanation, she changed the subject. She gestured at Yan's flowing ginger-colored dress and said with a half-smile, Miss Yen wore this dress a lot when she visited your lady, didn't she? Xiaodai, Lady Tang's maid, tilted her head and thought about it. Her eyes then lit up. That's right. This was indeed the dress Miss Yen wore when she came. Is there something wrong with it? The others thought Feng Wu's reasoning was all over the place and were utterly confused. Yin, on the other hand, had blanched. Glowering at Feng Wu, she said in an exasperated voice, It's none of your business what dress I wear. Feng Wu smiled and said unhurriedly, Well, it's not mine, but someone else may have something to say about it. After that, Feng Wu turned to Sir Yan. This dress Miss Yen is wearing has been soaked with the colorless and odorless juice of dry ginger grass. Sir Yan, are you going to ignore that fact? The juice of dry ginger grass? Master Bai cried out in surprise. A mixture of that and dark netherworld dragon tongue grass can quicken the blood flow, which can induce abortion if a pregnant woman inhales it for a period of time. All eyes were instantly on Yin. Yin smirked. Feng Wu, do you have any idea what you're talking about? She then turned to the crowd and said loudly, I swear that there's no such grass juice on my dress, nor do I have any idea of the effect of the two types of grass when mixed together. Feel free to take this dress and check it all you want. Yin sounded so righteous and sincere. The looks the crowd gave Feng Wu changed right away. Was Feng Wu slandering Yin now? Many had already gotten lost in the successive turns of events. Sure, I can do that, said Master Bai earnestly. Your Royal Highness, would you mind if I take the liberty to run the test? Linyuan shot a quick glance in Feng Wu's direction. All she needed to do was yield to his power and he would be on her side. However, she only stood there, looking so sure of herself. Go ahead. Linyuan kept his gaze on the girl as crafty as a fox and snorted. Feng Lu went inside and changed into another outfit. Master Bai then took the ginger-colored dress and was going to run the test. Yin darted a glance at Feng Wu, looking like the cat that had eaten the canary. Seeing how confident Feng Wu had been, Yin thought that the girl had figured everything out. As it turned out, she was just trying her luck. Yin was so proud of herself when... Chapter 366. Is that everything? Chapter 366. Is that everything? Feng Wu took Yin by the wrist. You. Yin glared at Feng Wu. What do you think you're doing? Everyone else was also confused. What was Feng Wu doing? Even Master Bai, who was ready to leave with that dress, turned around in bewilderment. Linyuan narrowed his deep-set eyes. He knew it. The girl as cunning as a fox wouldn't just stop there. Someone as dumb as Yin was never going to be Feng Wu's match. Feng Wu raised Yin right hand, exposing a red jade bracelet. The bracelet reflected the bright sunlight and was so dazzling that it almost hurt the eye. Feng Wu had noticed that bracelet all along, and realized that Yin had been trying to hide it. Hence, she deliberately drew everyone's attention to the dress, which successfully distracted Yin, who had kept that bracelet on. Everyone realized in amazement that when Feng Wu took Yin by the wrist, Yin stiffened and blanched. Nice red jade bracelet, Feng Wu commented casually. Before they knew it, everyone was absorbed in Feng Wu's narration and let her words guide their emotions. They were amazed and excited at her hint. At the same time, they had no idea that they were doing it. You. Let go of me. Yin struggled. Feng Wu, a level 9 spiritual master, was more than enough to keep Yin from running away. Even without that cultivation level, Feng Wu would still make sure that Yin wasn't going anywhere. Holding Yin's wrist as if she had picked up a chicken, Feng Wu removed the bracelet with a quick flick of her hand. Give it back to me. Yin panicked and she stared at Feng Wu in fear. Feng Wu knew it. How could she? Yin felt like fainting. She had thought about hiding it. When she went in to change her clothes, she had thought about taking the bracelet off and hiding it in the room. However, she had decided to keep it on since Feng Wu didn't seem to have noticed it, and she thought she could humiliate Feng Wu that way. Hence, instead of taking it off, she wore it. And she had been so satisfied with herself. If the others found out, she was never going to be able to clear her name. At that thought, Yin dashed toward Feng Wu frantically and took a dagger out of her sleeve. She was going to kill Feng Wu. Feng Wu smiled a little. Instead of trying to fight back, she hid behind Linyuan. Yin had to walk around Linyuan if she wanted to kill Feng Wu. Before Yin could come close, Feng flipped his sleeve and Yin was shoved away. Everyone stared at Feng Wu and Yin in confusion. What were the two girls playing at? However, there were quite a few smarter ones in the crowd and they had figured out what was going on. Feng Wu raised the bracelet and said to Master Bai, "You'll find the juice of dry ginger grass in here." She then tossed the bracelet to Master Bai. So, that dress was only a distraction so that Yin would give herself away. Opening up the red jade bracelet, Master Bai took a sniff and his eyes lit up. That's correct. Although the juice is colorless and odorless, I can sense it. I'll mix it with the juice of dark netherworld dragon tongue grass and we'll know. He then took out a vial and mixed the two types of juices in front of everyone. He waited for a few minutes for the reaction to take place, then took a sniff. The look on his face changed. Chapter 367 Linyuan in action. Chapter 367 Linyuan in action. Master Bai always spoke his mind, not to mention that with Linyuan here, he couldn't keep anything back even if he wanted to. Ignoring all the warning glances Sir Yan was shooting at him, Master Bai said in a solemn voice, "From what I have here, I can confirm that the mixture made from the material Miss Feng provided is indeed dry leaf dragon tongue potion, a potion that can induce miscarriage." Yin was furious. Raising her chin, she snorted. "That's bullshit. It's not dry leaf dragon tongue potion." Sir Yan's face was livid. He was way too smart to be tricked by Yin, and because of that he couldn't let that accusation stick. He could punish Yin after the banquet was over. If that charge stuck, Yin-Yan's reputation would be ruined forever. Therefore, the old fox stared at Feng Wu and said unhurriedly, "Miss Wu, that's a very serious accusation." After that, he darted a warning glance at Feng Yanfeng. If Feng Yanfeng still wanted that position, he had to step out and get Feng Wu under control. Feng Yanfeng had been observing and weighing the options all this time. He realized that Jun Linyuan really wasn't going to take Feng Wu's side. And what was more, the crown prince was quite impatient with the girl. Hence, Feng Yanfeng decided to stick with Sir Yan. "Feng Wu, do you really think you're some sort of doctor? You know nothing. You're not even a junior medicine refiner. Stop making yourself a laughingstock and get back here." As the head of the Feng clan, Feng Yanfeng scolded Feng Wu in a harsh tone. There was nothing he could do to Master Bai, and stopping Feng Wu was his only option. He thought that he had given Feng Wu enough hints. If the girl had any sense, she would stop what she was doing and admit to everything they had accused her of. That way, she would be helping the entire Feng clan. Such was what Feng Yanfeng hoped to get from Feng Wu. Once Sir Yan had spoken, Yin regained her confidence. Resting her hands on her waist, she snorted, "Feng Wu, get down on your knees and apologize to me. Or I'll see you in court and there will be consequences." She was blatantly bullying Feng Wu. With Sir Yan and the head of the Feng clan on Yan's side, she was never going to lose that lawsuit. However, the crown prince was unhappy to see everyone turn against Feng Wu. He frowned and the look on his face turned very grim. No one could pick on that little fox except for himself. Who did all these imbeciles think they were? How dare they? To make it worse, that girl remained so stubborn after everything they had done. Would it kill her to plead him for help? At that thought, Jun Linyuan couldn't help but throw a disappointed glance at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was baffled. What had she done now? Jun Linyuan gritted his teeth at the bewildered look on Feng Wu's face. That dumb woman. He was going to explode. Although she hadn't said anything, he still couldn't help standing up for her. What was wrong with him? Hence, the crown prince rose to his feet all of a sudden. Everyone turned to him in confusion. Was His Royal Highness leaving? Dragging Feng Wu out from behind him, Jun Linyuan asked through gritted teeth, "How do you tell if it really is the potion you're talking about?" At that moment, Feng Wu was smirking inwardly at Feng Yanfeng the opportunist, and was trying to figure out a way to force Yin to drink that potion. She blurted out her reply at Jun Linyuan's question. Chapter 368 Feng Wu Help. Chapter 368 Feng Wu Help. Feng Wu said calmly, "Drinking it will instantly induce a miscarriage. A non-pregnant person will have bloodshot eyes and bleed through their eyes, nose, ears and mouth. It'll be lethal." Before Feng Wu finished talking, Jun Linyuan darted a glance at Feng. With a wave of his hand, Feng took hold of Yin and forced her mouth open with his free hand. Jun Linyuan tilted that vial. The potion inside flowed out and poured down Yin-Yan's throat. It might seem a lengthy process in description, but everything happened in a split second. Before anyone had time to react, Feng had tossed Yin on the ground like a piece of garbage. "See? So easy." Jun Linyuan darted a look at Feng Wu, who stood there with her mouth falling open. It was so interesting to see the girl so shocked. Jun Linyuan felt much better now. Feng Wu stared at Jun Linyuan in a daze. The same crown prince that had always sabotaged her missions was working with her now? Was he planning something? She found it hard to believe. And it had only been a second since Yin fell to the ground. Cough, cough. Holding her own throat, Yin kept on coughing until she felt like she was going to cough her lungs out. Sticking her fingers down her throat, she tried to force herself to throw up so that she could spit out the potion. However, while she was doing that, wretch, Yin spat out a mouthful of blood. Feng said coldly, "The potion is in your blood." No, I don't want to die. No, don't. Frightened by her own blood, Yin burst into tears. Her trembling voice was teary and she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Staring at Yin, Mrs. Yin opened her mouth, but didn't know what to say. Sir Yin tried to speak, but he then saw the grim look on Jun Linyuan's emotionless face, and he decided to keep his silence. "I don't want to die. Get me the antidote. Mom, help me." Yin howled and wrapped her arms around Mrs. Yan's leg. She was greatly shaken by what was going on, and those tears and her screams were genuine. Through her reaction, she had admitted to hiding the juice of dried ginger grass in her bracelet. But that wasn't enough. Fengwu had to make sure that Yin said it out loud. Yin, it's the poison you hid yourself. Call it reaping what you sow. I'm not to be blamed for this. Fengwu smirked. Dignity was nothing compared to one's life. Scared out of her wits, Yin rushed to Fengwu's side and wrapped herself around the latter's leg. She cried in despair. "Fengwu, aren't you a great doctor? Help me. Please. I'll do anything. Just help me." Fengwu looked down at Yin with a half-smile. "Help you? Did you think about what would happen to Lady Tang when you did what you did?" Yin felt her heart racing and her ears rumbling. Her head hurt so bad that it felt like it was going to split open. She thought that she was really going to die. Flustered, Yin cried out loud, "I didn't mean to. I'm going to lose everything if she has a son. I really had no choice. Fengwu, help me. Help me." Everyone thought Yin was delirious. Why was she asking Fengwu for help? Was this Miss Wu such a great doctor? Chapter 369 Your Royal Highness, how can you stand it? Chapter 369. Your Royal Highness, how can you stand it? Meanwhile, many had realized another thing. Yin had really poisoned Lady Tang. She had admitted it herself. Sir Yin took a deep breath and closed his eyes. A stupid alliance could do more damage than a formidable enemy. He had known from the start that Yin was the real culprit and Fengwu was innocent, but he had still coerced and bribed, trying his best to exonerate Yin of the charge. But what did Yin do? Even a pig was smarter than she was. Sir Yin thought he was going to have a stroke. How could Yin cry into Fengwu's lap now? Did she have no idea at all that she had been set up by Fengwu from the very beginning? Sir Yin wanted to give his daughter a reminder, but Jun Linyuan cast a dangerous and grim look at him, which successfully frightened the father. He didn't dare defy the crown prince. Not in a million years. Jun Linyuan then darted an arrogant look at Fengwu. "It took you so long to take care of such a petty thing. You'd be dead by now without my help." She should get on her knees and thank him now. Fengwu got Jun Linyuan's implied message right away, which made her roll her eyes. "Jun Linyuan, are you an idiot? Since when do I need your help?" She had had 3 backup plans ready, and she could have finished Yin off with any one of them like crushing an ant. Everyone was shocked by Fengwu's words. Exactly how bold was this woman? Not only did she address the crown prince by his name, she had also insulted him, calling him an idiot. She was so dead. Feng was going to throttle her. Hence, all heads turned in unison. Everyone eyed Feng in excitement and expectation. Now, hadn't he been just as relentless and exact when he had grabbed Yin by the neck? However, Feng only rubbed his nose and fell back. He then stood behind Jun Linyuan with his head lowered and his hands perfectly still, ignoring all the attention. The crowd was speechless. Then they turned to look at Jun Linyuan instead. "Your Royal Highness, she just called you an idiot. How can you stand that?" The teenager was supposed to be one of the most powerful men in the land, whose wrath could set the sky on fire and cause earthquakes. The sanctity of his honor shouldn't be challenged. As expected, Jun Linyuan kept his cold gaze on Fengwu. Fengwu glared back, her gaze equally intense. She reminded Jun Linyuan of an angry little lion. The longer Jun Linyuan looked at her, the more interesting he found her. Before he knew it, he had raised a hand and was about to rub her head. He was halfway there when he realized what he was doing, and he put his hand back down in embarrassment. Crossing his hands behind his back and raising his chin, he said in a haughty voice, "You two-faced woman." No, this wasn't right. The crowd was completely baffled. What they hoped to see was the crown prince grabbing Feng Wu by her thin neck and snapping it with a crack. They were hoping to see the beauty dead. Not this affectionate bickering. What were the two of them doing, being all lovey-dovey? Stop it. Bah, no, that was definitely not what was happening here. The crown prince and Feng Wu found each other repulsive. There was no lovey-dovey thing going on between them. The crowd consisted mostly of teenage girls, who were a very imaginative lot. All their eyes were on Feng Wu now, and they prayed for Feng Wu to piss off the crown prince again. And Feng Wu didn't let them down. She snorted and revealed her plan. Plan A, I would let Yin pretend. Plan B. Plan C. Feng Wu was very pleased with her plans, and she darted a proud look at Jun Linyuan. Chapter 370 Feng Wu pokes Jun Linyuan's waist with a finger. Chapter 370. Feng Wu pokes Jun Linyuan's waist with a finger. Crossing her hands behind her back, Feng Wu stuck out her chest and snorted contemptuously. Without you, I could have still gotten her to do exactly what I wanted, as easy as that. She didn't stand a chance. The crowd was dumbfounded. She had 3 backup plans. And she could indeed use any of them to defeat Yin completely. Feng Wu was amazing. No, that wasn't the point. The point was that Feng Wu was bold enough to provoke the crown prince like that. How dare she, when the crown prince had helped her? This was beyond being proud. She had to have a death wish. All the girls looked expectantly at Jun Linyuan. Your Royal Highness, how can you let her do that to you? Jun Linyuan ground his teeth. No wonder she hadn't asked him for help. She had had everything under control. However, it was really interesting to see the girl defy him like this. Moving closer to Feng Wu, Jun Linyuan smiled wickedly and breathed into her ear. Hey, do you still want that broken star piece? Yes. Feng Wu's eyes sparkled and her face lit up. The crown prince was very pleased. Have as many backup plans as you want, but you can't get that lock open on your own. And he was right. Raising his chin proudly, Jun Linyuan looked up at the sky and into the distance. He made it so clear, beg me. Now. Feng Wu snorted. She would never do that, for she could always wait for another chance. Someone as smart as she was would never be daunted by such a petty setback. However, Feng Wu realized that something was very wrong when she felt around the inside of her sleeve. Her heart sank. That key. The key she had taken from Sir Yin was gone. It had been there a minute ago. Feng Wu looked down at Jun Linyuan's hand involuntarily, and as expected, she saw it in his palm. The crown prince whispered in her ear, well, if Sir Yin finds out that you, Jun, Lin, Yuan. Feng Wu lowered her voice and squeezed out that name through gritted teeth. Jun Linyuan was very pleased to see the girl flare up. His chin still raised, he darted a look at Feng Wu. Feng Wu took the hint right away. Beg him now or he would show everyone the key. With Jun Linyuan's words, everyone would believe that she had stolen the key. Feng Wu took a deep breath. She had almost found him lovely when he had taken care of Yin just then, but he was back to his old self already. 3, 2. Raising his chin and crossing his hands behind his back, Jun Linyuan looked so proud that Feng Wu wanted to scream. However, a slim fair finger jabbed Jun Linyuan in his waist. Yes, Jun Linyuan put on a solemn face. This man. He was really pushing it. Feng Wu was so mad. However, she had no choice but to take a deep breath to fight back her anger before forcing out an ingratiating smile. She had to try so hard that the muscles on her face twitched. Your Royal Highness. Feng Wu poked Jun Linyuan's waist again. She had to do it. She could try to steal the broken star piece later, but she couldn't afford to be charged for theft. No one else could intimidate her, for she knew that she was superior in intelligence and mindset. However, Chapter 371 Jun Linyuan doesn't want to speak to dumb little Feng Wu anymore. Chapter 371. Jun Linyuan doesn't want to speak to dumb little Feng Wu anymore. With Jun Linyuan, the smart guy who had a habit of sabotaging her missions, Feng Wu really wasn't sure what would happen. Jun Linyuan was all cheerful inwardly, but he managed to keep his stunning face very straight. He was solemn, stern, and utterly unapproachable. The crowd couldn't hear their conversation, and they had no idea what those two were discussing. All they saw was Feng Wu eagerly begging for something, while the proud crown prince ignored her. That Feng Wu. Why was she so close to their crown prince? Who did she think she was? Her engagement to the crown prince was already cancelled. She should keep her distance. The teenage girls glared at Feng Wu with jealousy until their eyes turned red from all the staring. Feng Wu had no idea what was going on in their heads. She poked Jun Linyuan's waist again. Jun Linyuan. Speak, the crown prince said unhurriedly. Can you give me back my key? Please. Feng Wu swallowed the humiliation silently. Feng Wu kept telling herself in her head that to get what she wanted, she had to be able to adapt to any situation. This was nothing. Jun Linyuan darted a haughty look at Feng Wu and snorted. That's all you can do? Huh. Feng Wu was at a loss. She was trying to steal from Sir Yan. What more did he want from her? The crown prince was very pleased to see the confused look on the girl's exquisite face. It was so nice to have the girl beg him for help. Although he had no idea why he felt that way, he was smart enough to realize how to stretch that feeling. He would make Feng Wu owe him. After that, he would ask her to repay him every day, and he would be able to see her flare up like a little angry lion all the time. It was so much fun just thinking about it. At that thought, Jun Linyuan raised the hand that was holding the key. Feng Wu's heart raced. Was he really going to show the others that key? Feng Wu grabbed Jun Linyuan by his wrist without hesitation. Boom! The teenage girls in the crowd thought they were going to explode and their pupils contracted. His hand. Feng Wu had touched His Royal Highness's hand. The crown prince was famous for being a neat freak. He would cut Feng Wu's hands off for sure. Many found the upcoming gory scene frightening and they covered their eyes with their hands, but they still couldn't help but peek through the gaps between their fingers. As soon as Feng Wu grabbed Jun Linyuan's wrist, the crown prince felt as if electricity was rushing through his veins. His heart raced, his back stiffened, and he stood there dazed, not knowing how to react. Feng Wu had no idea of any of that. Shaking Jun Linyuan's arm nervously, she pleaded in a pitiful voice, Jun Linyuan, are you going to? No. Are you going to steal the broken star piece for me then? Feng Wu looked up at him eagerly. Speechless, Jun Linyuan gave her a contemptuous, are you an idiot, look. What's wrong with you? Who do you think I am? Do I need to steal when I want something? The crown prince said with a smirk. Feng Wu darted him a glance. Do you have a better idea? Jun Linyuan rolled his eyes. You need an idea for a petty thing like this. He didn't want to talk to his dumb little Feng Wu anymore. He then beckoned Sir Yan over with a casual wave of his hand. Sir Yan smiled bitterly. Yin Yan had admitted everything and her future looked very bleak. However, he couldn't take the crown prince's command lightly. He went up to Jun Linyuan in a hurry. Jun Linyuan darted an indifferent look at Sir Yan. Chapter 372 Broken Star Piece. Chapter 372 Broken Star Piece. Jun Linyuan's dark eyes reminded Sir Yan of an abyss. Before long, Sir Yan's knees buckled and his heart raced. I was told that you have a broken piece of something? Jun Linyuan said indifferently. Sir Yan's stomach lurched. The broken star piece? How had His Royal Highness found out about it? Sir Yan began to get a cramp in his belly. Show me. Jun Linyuan gave him a brooding look and said in that arrogant and matter-of-fact tone. Feng Wu eyed Jun Linyuan with an almost reverent look in her eyes. She felt like giving him a thumbs up. That was awesome. It struck Feng Wu at that moment that when one was so superior in their capability and status, they didn't need to use any sort of tactic. Just like Jun Linyuan, all he needed to do was ask. I want that and you're going to give it to me. Jun Linyuan was over the moon when he saw the fervent look in Feng Wu's eyes. Sir Yan despaired and he stammered. Your Royal Highness. As a matter of fact, I do have it here, but the broken star piece can thoroughly remold one's body, and I'm counting on it for my next breakthrough in my cultivation. As Sir Yan put up a feeble resistance, Jun Linyuan looked at him with a half-smile, and the curve of his mouth looked dangerously wicked. With a wave of his hand, the proud crown prince said, I won't take no for an answer. So that was it. Who was Sir Yan to say no to the crown prince? Even an experienced bureaucrat like Sir Yan was defeated. But I can't open it without my key. Sir Yan made one last attempt to resist the request. Are you sure? Linyuan narrowed his eyes. Sir Yan fumbled around in his sleeves to prove himself. I am wait. His hand came out of his sleeve with a key in it. At that moment all eyes were on Sir Yan. Didn't Sir Yan say that he lost his key? Didn't Yan say that Feng Wu stole Sir Yan's key to open the vault? And didn't Sir Yan accuse Feng Wu of doing that? So Sir Yan had that key on him all along. That wasn't a very nice thing for Sir Yan to do. For a moment, everyone discussed the matter in low voices. Sir Yan was the minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel, and he was in charge of the appointment of all officials. Therefore, no one dared to question Sir Yan publicly, but it didn't stop them from talking behind Sir Yan's back. Sir Yan was baffled himself. How had this happened? He was sure that the key had been lost. Looking up, he was met by Linyuan's brooding gaze. The look the crown prince gave him was worth 1,000 words. Sir Yan felt as if a big hand was gripping his heart and squeezing it hard. What was more important, the key or his own life? Without another word, Sir Yan left, still holding the key. He soon came back with an exquisite rosewood box and handed it over with a bitter smile. Your Royal Highness, here it is. Yes, that's it. Before Feng Wu could say anything, little Phoenix went berserk with excitement in the ring. Yes, it's in the box. The broken star piece. You have to have it. You must. Little Phoenix flapped its wings, its face flushed. Get all 5 of them and your master will wake up. Feng Wu eyed the wooden box eagerly, hoping that Linyuan would give it to her. Chapter 373 Beautiful Master. Chapter 373 Beautiful Master. Feng Wu eyed the exquisite box in Linyuan's hands. Gimme, please give it to me. That was the broken star piece that could save her master. Feng Wu gazed at it anxiously, straining her eyes. You want it? The crown prince's teasing voice rang out next to her. Yes, Feng Wu nodded repeatedly. Seeing little Feng Wu hop around like an adorable puppy, Linyuan was amused. The girl was always so grumpy and wouldn't stop yelling at him. This was his first time seeing her this docile. He wanted to rub her little head so bad. Ahem. Crossing his hands behind his back, he darted a haughty look at Feng Wu. Say please. Wasn't she so proud? He wanted to see her beg him for it. Feng Wu would do anything for that broken star piece and she blurted out, please. She kept her eyes on the wooden box in Linyuan's hands the entire time, as if drawn by a magnet. Although Feng Wu did what he had asked, the proud crown prince still didn't cheer up. Holding the box, Linyuan racked his brain. He had asked Sir Yan for that broken star piece so that he could give it to Feng Wu. However, would she stay this way if he gave it to her? Once he figured that out, Linyuan changed his mind. He stuffed that small box in his chest pocket and that was it. Ah! Feng Wu cried out in surprise. Her pitiful eyes instantly burst into flames and she glared at Linyuan. Seeing the cute puppy turn into an angry bird in a split second, Linyuan found it very interesting. He cleared his throat and told Sir Yan, I'll take this. After that, Linyuan gave a wave of his hand, crossed his hands behind his back, and left without hesitation. He left just like that. Feng Wu was exasperated. How could he do that? He had promised that he would give her the broken star piece if she begged him. How could he go back on his word like that? If she knew this was going to happen, she would rather that the piece remain where it was. At least she would be able to steal it from Sir Yan. Why didn't she follow him out? Linyuan slowed down so that Feng Wu could keep up with him. Right now, Feng Wu's fists were clenched in rage and her face was flushed from the agitation. For a moment she wasn't sure what to do. Follow him. Little Phoenix rolled around in the ring in exasperation. Your master will wake up for a brief moment when each broken piece is placed in his forehead. So just go. Her beautiful master would wake up for a moment with each broken piece. Feng Wu was astonished by that piece of information. My master will wake up? Really? Tears welled up in Feng Wu's eyes. Her beautiful master would wake up for a moment, and he would talk to her. Would she really be able to see her master wake up again? Feng Wu's vision blurred with her tears. Little Phoenix flew around in circles. There are only 5 of them in the entire world. Go with him. Now, that crown prince is so evil. What if he uses it on himself? Chapter 374 The Truth. Chapter 374. The Truth. That made Feng Wu shudder right away. If Jun Linyuan consumed that broken star piece himself, then her beautiful master would. Feng Wu was scared out of her wits in that instant. There was no time to think, and she dashed off like a gust of wind. Everyone else was baffled. Miss Feng Wu followed His Royal Highness out? Just like that? Doesn't she realize how impatient His Royal Highness was with her? Yin Yan took the chance to exclaim, "See? I was telling the truth. Feng Wu just can't leave His Royal Highness alone. She's a good-for-nothing and all she knows to do is follow His Royal Highness around." Smack! Sir Yan had had enough and he slapped Yin Yan. If it hadn't been for his imbecilic daughter, the Yan family would never have been humiliated like this today, and the crown prince would never have taken that broken star piece, which had taken Sir Yan some painstaking effort to obtain. To make matters worse, the lives of his favorite concubine and his unborn child were hanging in the balance. Sir Yan was furious. Just then Feng Sun, who had gone to the royal palace to fetch Master Chu, came back with the ladder. After showing Master Chu the way, Feng Sun ran off hurriedly to find Jun Linyuan. With his current status, Sir Yan was able to invite Master Chu over by trying very hard. At that moment, a scream came from inside. Master Chu's face went livid and he glared at Sir Yan. "Can't you see how much pain the lady is in? And all that you people are doing is to stand around here and bicker?" Sir Yan was rendered speechless. He cupped his hands at Master Chu and took the ladder to Lady Tang. Master Chu checked the patient and immediately looked surprised. He cupped his hands at Sir Yan, then turned to leave. Vexed, Sir Yan stopped Master Chu right away. Master Chu was the head of the Bureau of Physicians and the best physician in the imperial city. Master Chu was very straightforward. The lady suffers from chronic poisoning, from a rare toxic mixture of the juices of dark netherworld dragon tongue grass and dry ginger grass. That male fetus is long dead, and there's nothing I can do. What? Sir Yan almost blacked out. The old lady, who had managed to stand up with much difficulty, looked dazed, as if she had just been struck by a thunderbolt. A dead fetus? But how? Master Chu snapped. How? Ask whoever poisoned her. This is such bad luck for me. He stormed off after that, as quickly as he had arrived. All of the Yan family were greatly shaken. The old lady said repeatedly, "A male fetus? Male? It was a boy." Sir Yan was too devastated to speak. God knew how desperately he had waited for a male heir all these years. At that thought, Sir Yan darted a vicious glance at Yan Yan, which reminded her of a bloodthirsty wolf. Yan Yan's stomach lurched. Frightened by Feng Wu, Yan Yan had herself admitted in front of everyone that she had poisoned Lady Tang. There was no taking it back now. More than anything, she regretted coming up with this plan. If she hadn't tried to frame Feng Wu, the fact that she had poisoned Lady Tang would never have been exposed. Lady Tang would have had a stillborn baby and lost all of Sir Yan's favor. That way no one would have linked it to Yan Yan. But now, Yan Yan was too overwhelmed by regret to shed tears. Meanwhile, outside the Yan manor, Jun Linyuan had gotten into his carriage. "Wait for me. Wait." Feng Sun arrived like a gust of wind and he was going to hop into the carriage. But Chapter 375. Who told you I like that frivolous woman? Chapter 375. Who told you I like that frivolous woman? Jun Linyuan stared at Feng Sun grumpily. As soon as he got into the carriage, Feng Sun realized the unusual silence and the drop in temperature. Boss Jun stared at him unblinkingly and the cold gaze felt like a cold blade on Feng Sun's skin. A chilly sensation ran down Feng Sun's spine. Boss Jun was in a bad mood. Realizing that, Feng Sun cleared his throat. "Well, That thing with Yan Yin needs wrapping up. I'll get on with it. After that, he dashed off without hesitation. Someone had pissed off Boss Jun again, and hanging around that guy would be suicidal at the moment. Feng Sun wasn't that dumb. As soon as he jumped out of the carriage, he saw Feng Wu running toward it. And he grabbed Feng Wu by her arm right away. The sudden intervention made Feng Wu stumble and she almost fell. Feng Sun steadied Feng Wu by wrapping his arm around her waist, and he said involuntarily, "Watch out." Neither of them noticed the chilly air spreading out from the carriage a short distance away. "Where are you going?" Seeing that Feng Wu was rushing toward Jun Linyuan's carriage, Feng Sun was scared out of his wits. Feng Wu said, "I need to see Jun Linyuan." "No." Feng Sun turned her down right away. "Not now. Let go of me. Little Feng Wu, please do as I say. You really can't go there right now." Feng Sun said in exasperation. "Boss Jun is in a terrible mood at the moment and whatever you're going to do, you'll only offend him. So, please stay away from the carriage." Feng Wu said, "Just let go of me." Feng Sun was very persistent. "I'm not going to let you get yourself killed." Feng Wu was speechless. Seeing Feng Wu and Feng Sun's interaction, the temperature around the crown prince dropped even further. Frost crept up the inside walls of the carriage and even Feng shuddered inwardly. It was really cold. Feng Sun also sensed the murderous energy in the air and he said earnestly to Feng Wu, "Can't you feel it? That's from Boss Jun. You're asking to get killed if you go to him now." However, Feng Wu couldn't care less about that. She had to have that broken star piece. It was like Little Phoenix said. What if Jun Linyuan consumed that piece himself? There were only 5 of them in the entire world, and without this one, what would happen to her beautiful master? She couldn't risk it. At that thought, Feng Wu pushed Feng Sun away. "I have my own reasons and I have to see Jun Linyuan now. Feng Sun, please stay out of it." At the same time, inside the carriage, Feng darted a look at the crown prince, whose face had turned livid, and he sighed inwardly. Turning the carriage into an icehouse seemed to be the only thing the crown prince knew to do, which definitely wasn't the way to get girls. Should he remind his young master? Being a steward was such a tough job. Feng waved his hands and deliberately instructed the driver, "We're going back now." At those words, the crown prince's face turned as dark as a stormy sky. And he cast a stern look at Feng. "Sir, if you really like Feng Wu," Feng tried to talk some sense into the teenager. "I like her." Jun Linyuan snorted. "Are you blind? Who told you I like that frivolous woman?" Feng rubbed his nose and smiled bitterly. He really wanted to remind the crown prince that if he kept treating Feng Wu in this manner, he would never win her heart. Chapter 376 Little Feng Wu. Chapter 376. Little Feng Wu. Seeing that young Lord Feng still wouldn't let go of Feng Wu, Feng shook his head with a wry smile. Had the crown prince passed on some of his silliness to his friend? "Miss Wu, please get in." Feng invited Feng Wu in. But Feng Sun frowned and was about to say something, but Feng stopped him with a shake of his head. Feng Wu threw Feng Sun's hands off and dashed into the carriage immediately. Feng Sun was very mad. Why wouldn't little Feng Wu listen to him? Why was she so in love with Boss Jun? The latter would kick her out. However, up until the carriage set out, why hasn't Boss Jun kicked little Feng Wu out? Scratching his head, Feng Sun was amazed. Feng looked up at the sky. How could he make Feng Sun see that the proud crown prince had been waiting there all this time just for Feng Wu? Kick her out? What was Feng Sun thinking? Feng decided to be nice and he reminded Feng Sun, "Young lord, as a matter of fact, His Royal Highness is." "I know," Feng Sun said in a regretful tone. "Boss Jun isn't interested in girls and he likes little Feng Wu even less. That girl is so smart, but how can she be so foolish in that respect? I just can't stop her." Sigh. The corner of Feng's mouth twitched, and he didn't know what to say. Just as Feng was finally able to come up with a speech that would enlighten young Lord Feng without hurting his pride, Feng Sun's mother beckoned her son over. "My mother needs me. Feng, please keep an eye on little Feng Wu." Feng Sun cupped his hands at Feng, then hurried off. Feng smacked his forehead. This job was so demanding. Back in the carriage, it was deadly silent. The proud crown prince was very generous with the cold air he was giving off, and Feng Wu shivered from the chill. This was so strange. Linyuan had been very demanding only just then. Why was he being so lofty all of a sudden? She would do anything for that broken star piece and her master. Feng Wu made a fist. Linyuan. Feng Wu tried to say something to ease the tension. However, as soon as she opened her mouth, Linyuan smiled contemptuously. He was smirking. Feng Wu only found him ridiculous. What was his problem? But, in order to save her beautiful master, she could stand something much worse than a smirk. She was very adaptable that way. Feng Wu moved a little closer in Linyuan's direction. The crown prince turned away in an arrogant manner and looked out the window. However, he wasn't paying any attention to the view outside. Hey! Feng Wu poked Linyuan's waist with a finger, but the proud crown prince still ignored her. That pissed Feng Wu off a little. Summoning up her courage, she reached out with a hand, took Linyuan's chin, and turned his head toward her. And their eyes met. The look in Linyuan's eyes was bone-chillingly cold. Only then did Feng Wu realize what she had done. She let go of Linyuan, stepped back and said awkwardly, "Well." What Feng Wu failed to notice was that the crown prince's earlobes had turned pink. Linyuan looked conflicted when he glared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu. Chapter 377 The Unreasonable Guy. Chapter 377 The Unreasonable Guy. Yes. Feng Wu involuntarily bolted upright. However, the carriage ceiling was too low for that and her head smashed into the hard wooden board overhead. She drew in a pained breath. Linyuan narrowed his eyes a little and he pulled Feng Wu to his side. Feng Wu put a hand on her forehead and grimaced in pain. The crown prince brushed away Feng Wu's hand and rubbed her head for her. A warm sensation spread out on Feng Wu's head and the pain eased up right away. Feng Wu was amazed and she looked up at Linyuan. Linyuan wouldn't return her gaze. With a livid face, he went on rubbing her head. An idea then struck Feng Wu. This was a great opportunity for her to steal that broken star piece back. At that thought, Feng Wu felt inside Linyuan's sleeves. Linyuan's back stiffened. What was the girl doing? Searching further up Linyuan's wide sleeves, Feng Wu made sure not to touch him. However, after a while, she realized in dismay that the box wasn't there. Could it be in his chest pocket? Feng Wu moved into action again. Stealthily, she felt around Linyuan's chest. Linyuan stiffened again. And he found it hard to breathe. However, he was secretly pleased. The two-faced girl was taking advantage of him when she thought he wasn't looking. "Are you that desperate?" Linyuan said in a taunting voice and he caught the fair hand reaching into his chest pocket. Feng Wu said, "You're out of your mind." "Am I?" Linyuan sat down, then pinned Feng Wu on his lap. That was way too intimate for Feng Wu's taste. She wanted to move away, but Linyuan stopped her by pressing a hand to the back of her head. She could feel the warmth of his skin and his hot breath on her cheeks. Their eyes then met. His brooding eyes looked frighteningly bright now. Linyuan saw vexation and an evasive look on Feng Wu's stunning face. She wanted to run away now. Linyuan smirked. Before Feng Wu could do anything else, he leaned toward her. And they were so close that the tips of their noses touched. Feng Wu's heart raced. Linyuan snorted. "You couldn't keep your hands off me and you're running away now? Stop playing hard to get." He moved closer and Feng Wu stopped breathing at the predatory look in his eyes. Oh. Feng Wu's head went blank. For she was furious. What did he mean by, "can't keep her hands off him"? She was only after the broken star piece. And what was that about playing hard to get? She wasn't interested in him at all. Could this man ever stop flattering himself? Feng Wu pounded on Linyuan's chest with her fists, but Linyuan took her wrists and kissed her even harder. Feng Wu felt like crying. This man was so unreasonable. He ravished her mouth with his unruly tongue. Feng Wu struggled with all her might. With her hands restrained, she kicked him instead. Linyuan turned the two of them around and pinned Feng Wu to the floor. His husky voice sounded quite sexy. "Little Feng Wu." Enough with this cat and mouse play. He was so sure of himself. Feng Wu was fuming. She wanted to slap herself. What had she been thinking, jumping into Jun Linyuan's carriage? She was too powerless to stop him at this stage. Chapter 378 You Touched Me. Chapter 378 You Touched Me. Jun Linyuan snickered. You had it coming. What did you think would happen after flirting with me like that? He had figured it out. Since the girl liked him that much and he didn't find her touch repulsive, he would just take her. Maybe this strange feeling would go away after he slept with her. At that thought, Jun Linyuan lowered his head and wanted to kiss her again. Feng Wu raised her hand to slap him. But Jun Linyuan stopped her before she could touch him and he smirked. Do you seriously think I'll let you do that? There is no cat and mouse play and I've never flirted with you. Feng Wu said in exasperation. You touched me, the crown prince said arrogantly. You touched my hands and my chest. Are you going to deny it? That set Feng Wu off and she said with a smirk, I was only looking for the broken star piece, not touching you. Why would I do that when I find you so repulsive? Your Royal Highness, stop flattering yourself. Oh. The world seemed to switch to silent mode at Feng Wu's words. Jun Linyuan stiffened and his eyes turned red. He then said between gritted teeth, Feng Wu, I dare you to say that again. Jun Linyuan was furious. Recalling all those occasions when she had been mistaken, Feng Wu was equally infuriated. She snorted. Why would I touch you when I find you so annoying? Your Royal Highness, you think too highly of yourself. Smack. Jun Linyuan's fist came down at Feng Wu. Seeing the formidable fist coming her way, Feng Wu's head went blank and she forgot to breathe. For a moment, she thought she was going to die. However, the fist brushed past her when it almost touched her face. Crack! The fist landed on the floor of the carriage instead. The gust of wind it created felt like a sharp blade on Feng Wu's cheek. The most frightening thing was that the carriage was turned into crumbs by that single strike. And all 4 horses went down on their knees. The driver also knelt down and didn't dare move. The crown prince's wrath was as formidable as an earthquake, which was more than a single carriage could take. All was deadly silent. Even the air seemed to freeze. Feng had been following them in his own carriage, and he had been planning to talk to the crown prince when they got back. The teenager needed to realize that he could only win a girl's heart with gentle words, not harsh ones. Then, he saw the carriage in front of him collapse. And he also saw the crown prince on top of little Feng Wu. That was... The proud teenager snorted, rose to his feet, and darted a contemptuous glance at Feng Wu. Very contemptuous. Feng felt so helpless. That bratty crown prince. How would he ever get any girl? He was practically chasing them away. When he saw the state Feng Wu was in, Feng felt even more helpless. Feng Wu's eyes were bloodshot red and her face was ghastly pale. What was worse, there were a few bloody scratches on her cheek. Miss Wu, your face is injured. Was it? Feng Wu touched her face and her hand came back covered with blood. Jun Linyuan's fist had glanced off it when it brushed past her. Feng Wu gritted her teeth and threw a dirty look at Jun Linyuan. She then cupped her hands at Feng. Thank you for your concern. I'll be on my way. Feng hesitated. The 2 teenagers had obviously been fighting, and if he let Miss Wu leave now, the crown prince would only sulk when he got back home. The entire manor would be turned upside down. Chapter 379 She wouldn't be intimidated. Chapter 379. She wouldn't be intimidated. Feng smiled apologetically. Miss Wu, the crown prince's residence is only a few miles away. How about you come back with us so that we can treat your wound? That won't be necessary. I don't deserve that sort of attention, Feng Wu said grumpily and turned to leave. How dare you leave now? The arrogant crown prince almost exploded. Couldn't this woman see that she was hurt? Why did she still want to leave? Seeing the scratches on Feng Wu's cheek, Jun Linyuan narrowed his eyes, and somehow he couldn't give vent to his frustration. Stop right there. Jun Linyuan's face was livid. Feng Wu ignored him. Why should she listen to him? Who did he think he was? One more step and I'll kill Feng Xiaoqi. Jun Linyuan's cold voice rang out behind Feng Wu. And Feng Wu was furious. Poor Xiaoqi. She hadn't had a chance to see him after he was taken away, and she had no idea how he was doing. Thump, thump, thump. Feng Wu turned around and went up to Jun Linyuan. She was stomping her feet so hard that she looked like a cannonball. She looked Jun Linyuan in the eye. Her limpid eyes were bloodshot red, and she looked like she was going to explode at any moment. She was so intimidating. Her smooth, exquisite cheek now had 3 tiny scratches on it. Perfection had been ruined and it was a painful sight. When he looked into Feng Wu's infuriated eyes, somehow, Jun Linyuan wasn't so sure about himself anymore. Evading those frighteningly bright eyes, he looked down and saw the 3 bloody scratches on her left cheek. Instantly, something painful filled his chest. Jun Linyuan, what's wrong with you? Feng Wu was ablaze with anger. Did I offend you in northern border city? Have I mistreated you? Have I provoked you somehow? And is this how you repay my hospitality? What has Xiaoqi ever done to deserve this? You snatched him just like that. He's only 12 years old. My family had to move all the way from northern border city to the imperial capital all because of you. Do you have any idea how dangerous the journey was? And do you know how dangerous the imperial capital is for us? And how difficult my mother's life will be here? Do you know how many men are drooling over her? You're the superior crown prince of the empire, and one word from you can change a person's entire life. Fine, you're invincible like that. But have you ever considered people like us? Oh. Feng Wu was too angry to choose her words carefully. She stepped forward with each sentence and Jun Linyuan fell back as she pressed on. In the end, Jun Linyuan's way was blocked by a tree, and he had nowhere to go. When he looked at Feng Wu again, the rage in his eyes was gone, replaced by pity. Jun Linyuan. I hate you. Feng Wu roared. On any given day, the proud crown prince would yell back. I can say the same to you. However, all he did now was rub his nose as his eyes darted around. His gaze sharpened when it landed on Feng. After hanging around the crown prince for so many years, Feng took the hint right away. His Royal Highness was embarrassed and he needed a way out. Feng was supposed to create that way now. Ahem, Feng said with a kind smile. I don't think we'll be able to settle anything out here on the road. How about we go back to the Crown Prince's residence or the Feng Manor to talk it over? The Feng Manor? Feng Wu shook her head involuntarily when she recalled how snobbish her uncle was. She couldn't take them back there. To the Crown Prince's residence, then? Feng Wu snorted. She wasn't going to let Jun Linyuan intimidate her. Chapter 380 Still Not Talking. Chapter 380 Still Not Talking. Jun Linyuan had destroyed his own carriage and Feng's carriage was the only one left. After the 2 teenagers got in, Feng stood behind the carriage and sighed. That was the only carriage they had now. Destroy this one and everyone would have to walk. Sigh. The Crown Prince was the heirborn to inherit the entire empire. He had been as disciplined as an 80-year-old since he was little. Never had Feng expected that Jun Linyuan would lose control like everyone else when he was around a girl he liked. Well, that was what teenagers were supposed to be like. Crossing his hands behind his back, Feng beamed. Inside the carriage, neither Feng Wu nor Jun Linyuan would look at the other, and it was very awkward. Jun Linyuan then stared at Feng Wu, but Feng Wu turned to look the other way. She refused to talk to him. Jun Linyuan's attitude had been softened by Feng Wu's speech just then. However, now that he had calmed down, he was back to his old arrogant self. Darting a glance at Feng Wu, he said, That was very bold of you to talk to a crown prince like that. Feng Wu kept her face emotionless and snorted inwardly. Seeing that Feng Wu wouldn't answer, Jun Linyuan glanced at her again. And you yelled at me. Do you know that you can be executed for that? Feng Wu grunted but still wouldn't talk to him. Jun Linyuan gave her an arrogant look. That was just an angry outburst, wasn't it? I know you still like me a lot. Feng Wu turned the other way to look at the view outside. Actually, she was listening to Little Phoenix's complaints. Little Feng Wu. Ah, bad news. By now, Feng Wu had become inured to little Phoenix's constant and agitated screams. She asked in resignation, "What now? Weren't you all over that bad prince's mouth just then?" "I wasn't," Feng Wu snapped. "Fine, that bad prince was all over your mouth. That's not the point. The point is that when that happened, I realized that you can no longer suck any abnormal flame out of him." Little Phoenix said with a long face. "I've lost my chance to get out. Again." Feng Wu smacked her forehead. "You have to think of a way. I can teleport you everywhere when I get out, and no one will be able to catch you that easily." The screaming gave Feng Wu a headache. "But what can I possibly do? That abnormal flame was removed." Look, what's that bad prince holding?" Little Phoenix trembled with excitement. Feng Wu turned her gaze back to Linyuan's hands. Right now, he was playing with a golden bead. Feng Wu sensed something familiar. It was that abnormal flame, the one little Phoenix had been dreaming of. That excited Feng Wu and she almost jumped at Linyuan. Playing with the abnormal flame bead, Linyuan was trying to figure out a way to get Feng Wu talking. "That bead." Feng Wu took a deep breath and stared at Linyuan. "What is it?" The girl was talking to him. The crestfallen crown prince got his confidence back right away. He knew it. The girl still liked him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have taken the initiative to talk to him. Once Feng Wu spoke, Linyuan was as arrogant as before. He gave Feng Wu an indifferent glance and asked, interested. Feng Wu nodded. "May I have a look?" As long as she took hold of it, she would never give it back. The abnormal flame bead was nothing of great value, but it had been taken out of little Feng Wu, which was why Linyuan had kept it on him. Seeing it would remind him of little Feng Wu. Chapter 381. I'll cook for you. Chapter 381. I'll cook for you. Seeing the eager look on Feng Wu's face, Linyuan almost gave it to her right away. However, he snorted. The girl couldn't fool him. He knew perfectly well that the moment she took hold of the thing, she would forget all about him. Hence, Linyuan darted an arrogant glance at Feng Wu. "You want to see it?" Feng Wu nodded eagerly. Little Phoenix held its breath and trembled with excitement. However, as Feng Wu eyed Linyuan expectantly, the proud crown prince casually stuffed the bead into his waistband, then shrugged at Feng Wu. "Feng Wu. How annoying. You want it?" Linyuan smiled like a fox. Feng Wu looked away, too pissed to talk to him. "You really want it?" Linyuan poked Feng Wu's shoulder with a long finger. Feng Wu went on sulking. He was enjoying himself so much, wasn't he? Seeing that Feng Wu wouldn't talk to him, Linyuan moved closer and poked Feng Wu in the shoulder again. Little Feng Wu, little Feng Wu. That was so childish. Feng Wu spun around and glared at him. "You must be enjoying yourself so much." She was really angry. She couldn't figure out why this world was so unfair, for everything she needed was now in Linyuan's possession. Feng Xiaoqi, little Phoenix's abnormal flame bead. The broken star piece to save her master. Linyuan had them all, and he wasn't giving any of them back. The girl's features were exquisite. Her cheeks were flushed, and the angry fire in her eyes reminded him of an indignant little lion. She looked so lovely. Linyuan had an impulse to rub her head, but he knew that would only set her off, so he restrained himself. He coughed into his fist. "I didn't say I wouldn't give it to you." New hope sprang up in Feng Wu, but she kept her angry face on and glowered at Linyuan. "Name your terms." Linyuan quickly glanced at Feng Wu and saw that she was still angry. He had yet to recover from the girl's furious accusations earlier, and he decided that it would be better not to enrage her further. "Maybe I'll just give it to you if I'm in a good mood." Linyuan dropped the hint. Feng Wu then asked a silly question. Moving closer, she stared at Linyuan unblinkingly. "What do I have to do to get you in a good mood then?" "Kiss me." Those words popped into Linyuan's head involuntarily, which frightened even him. Ahem. He cleared his throat to cover it up. Feng Wu felt uneasy. She sat down next to Linyuan and grabbed him by the arm. "Tell me, what do I have to do?" She desperately needed what Jun Linyuan held in his possession. Her brother, the abnormal flame bead, the broken star piece. She needed them all. Well, Jun Linyuan was as scheming as he was proud. Once he realized how valuable the chip he held was, he knew he had a lot of bargaining power. I'm feeling peckish. Rubbing his belly, he glanced at Feng Wu in a haughty manner. Feng Wu was speechless. She knew what was going on here. The crown prince was going to make her life difficult again. Well, she could adapt very easily and she didn't mind giving in a little every now and then. I can cook. Feng Wu swayed Jun Linyuan's arm back and forth. I'll cook for you. Looking down, Jun Linyuan met the girl's bright black eyes. His face lit up a little and his heart skipped a beat. However, he kept his face straight and pretended to ponder the proposition. Chapter 382. I thought His Royal Highness didn't like her? Chapter 382. I thought His Royal Highness didn't like her. Feng Wu looked up at Jun Linyuan, stuck out her delicate little chin, and patted her chest confidently. I can cook anything. Whatever you want to eat, just tell me. Her big eyes were so limpid and her eyelashes batted like two little fans. She looked so lovely when she needed him. Jun Linyuan gave her a haughty glance. You mean it? Of course, Feng Wu said in excitement. All she needed to do was make this impossible crown prince happy. She would get him nice food, entertain him, and keep his mood buoyant. That way, she would get what she wanted in the end. Let's see what you can do. Jun Linyuan kept his face very straight. Once the carriage stopped and everyone got out, Feng was amazed to see the crown prince leading the way, looking exactly like a superior leader should, while Miss Wu, who had thrown such a tantrum only moments ago, followed behind the crown prince like a little maid. With his hands behind his back, Jun Linyuan looked as proud as a peacock with its tail fanning out. Miss Wu, on the other hand, seemed to be fawning over him with all the nice words she could think of. This didn't seem right. Feng was puzzled and felt uneasy. Feng Wu ran after Jun Linyuan and asked in an enthusiastic voice, What would you like? My porridge is very tasty. Or noodles if you feel like it. As for the dishes, I remember that you didn't like food with strong flavors back in northern border city. I can make something light. Jun Linyuan frowned when he recalled all those dishes Feng Suan and the others gobbled down before he could have any. He snorted. I'll have what you made last time. He would like to see Feng Suan try to take his food this time. Feng Wu nodded immediately. No problem. Whether Jun Linyuan's stomach could take that much spicy food wasn't her concern. She only needed to make sure that he was happy. Mr. Feng, where's the kitchen? Feng Wu ran up to Feng cheerfully. Feng still hadn't gotten over his bewilderment, but he hid it very well. He smiled politely. Miss Wu, do you need to cook? We have a small kitchen just around the corner. The residence was way too big, and its wall ran down the entire length of the street. It would take them 15 minutes on foot to get to the main kitchen. Jun Linyuan went back to the main hall, while Feng showed Feng Wu to the small kitchen. There was everything: vegetables, fish, meat, you name it. Everything except for hot peppers. But that wouldn't be a problem, for Feng Wu had all the condiments she needed stored in her ring. This was the second time Feng Wu had set foot in the crown prince's residence. Although she had been unconscious the last time she was here. Chong-san was shocked to see Feng Wu. Pulling Feng to the side, he said, Mr. Feng, isn't that Miss Feng Wu? Why did you bring her here? His Royal Highness doesn't like her. Wouldn't he be angry? There weren't many servants in the crown prince's residence, but every single one of them was very loyal. With a master like Jun Linyuan, the price of disloyalty was death. No one wanted that. The crown prince hardly ever brought any woman back, but today a girl had just walked in alive. Everyone was eager for some gossip and they all gathered around Chong-san, then looked at Feng expectantly. Feng frowned. His Royal Highness doesn't like Miss Wu? How had Chong-san come to that conclusion? As Jun Linyuan's personal guard, Chong-san was very confident in his observation. It's true. I saw it with my own eyes. His Royal Highness was so mad last time because of her. Chapter 383. Zuo Qingluan's Informant. Chapter 383. Zuo Qingluan's Informant. Jun Linyuan's attitude toward Feng Wu would decide how his servants treated Feng Wu. And all eyes were on Feng. Feng had always been discreet with his words. He wasn't going to reveal anything before the crown prince said something himself. Hence he said with a straight face, just wait and see. He believed that anyone that wasn't blind would soon see the truth. However, the maids in the residence were a different story. Sister Zhanxia, a young maid named Mengyu dashed into a small courtyard with the hem of her dress lifted off the ground. Zhanxia was doing some sewing when Mengyu grabbed her hand. Sister Zhanxia. Bad news. As one of the senior maids who worked for Jun Linyuan, there was something very calm about Zhanxia. She gave Mengyu an unhurried glance. Catch your breath, then speak. Mengyu stomped her foot. Sister Zhanxia, you have to do something. That Miss Wu is here again. Zhanxia raised a pretty eyebrow. The Miss Wu that used to be engaged to His Royal Highness. That's her. Mengyu was almost in tears. She's shameless. Last time she pretended to pass out to get His Royal Highness to carry her back. And she's all over His Royal Highness again. She's here in the manor. I overheard that she was going to cook for His Royal Highness. The frown on Zhanxia's face grew bigger. She was making a new robe for Jun Linyuan. He never wore the same robe twice, which meant that he needed new ones all the time. Zhanxia smiled. Maybe she was only joking. No young lady can be that shameless. She wasn't. Sister Zhanxia, His Royal Highness isn't going to marry her, is he? As His Royal Highness's maids, we can't let someone as useless as her become our lady, right? Even Mengyu, the lowest-ranked maid, dreamed about marrying Jun Linyuan one day, to say nothing of Zhanxia, the senior maid. SSSS. The needle jabbed into Zhanxia's finger and she frowned in pain. Sister Zhanxia. Mengyu stomped her foot in exasperation. Since His Royal Highness didn't throw her out, who are we to get rid of her? Picking up the black brocade robe, Zhanxia went back to her sewing. She said slowly, "You've delivered the message. Now go back to your work." Gosh. Mengyu stomped her foot one more time before dashing off. If Sister Zhanxia wouldn't do anything, she would go to Sister Yuchun instead. Watching Mengyu leave, Zhanxia narrowed her eyes a little. Feng Wu was back again. She put down the robe and sat down at her desk. She then took out a piece of paper and quickly wrote a letter. Feng Wu wouldn't like this letter at all, for the envelope read, "For Miss Zuo Qingluan's eyes only." Writing the letter was quick, but sending it out wasn't as easy a task. Zhanxia was still able to make it happen. Since Zhanxia wouldn't do anything, Mengyu went to Yuchun. What? Yuchun wasn't as level-headed as Zhanxia. She smacked the table and rose to her feet. Feng Wu followed His Royal Highness in? What did His Royal Highness say? Did he have her thrown out? No. Mengyu was almost in tears. His Royal Highness went back to his room and ignored her. But Miss Wu is so shameless. She went to the kitchen and insisted on cooking for His Royal Highness, thinking that she can seduce His Royal Highness that way. She's so. What about Changsan and Mr. Feng? Why didn't they stop her? Yuchun was furious. That useless Feng Wu had to be delirious to think that she could have something to do with the crown prince. Chapter 384. How dare she hit her? Chapter 384. How dare she hit her? Yuchun couldn't even stand to hear Feng Wu's name mentioned alongside the crown prince. Changsan didn't seem happy and Mr. Feng wouldn't do anything about it. That's how Feng Wu was able to get in. Shame on her. Mengyu had stopped addressing Feng Wu as Mississippi. As a servant of the crown prince, she deemed herself superior to everyone else. Men are not suitable for this kind of thing. Yuchun gave a wave of her hand. We can't let her do this to His Royal Highness. Come, let's see what she's doing. As Jun Linyuan's senior maid, Yuchun had two maids of her own. On her way to the kitchen, many heard that Yuchun was going after Feng Wu, and more people joined them. In the end, there were over a dozen of them. Feng had gone back to the main hall to wait on the crown prince. Changsan was pondering Jun Linyuan's actual attitude toward Feng Wu, so no one noticed Yuchun's actions. Bang! Yuchun kicked the door to the small kitchen open. That small was relative to the main kitchen. In fact, the small kitchen was nearly 500 square meters in size. Feng Wu was going to make 10 dishes in total, and she had finished 5 of them already. The door was kicked open when she moved on to the 6th. Feng Wu looked back involuntarily. Yu Chun's head went blank when she saw Feng Wu. She was so beautiful. Those exquisite features, that snowy complexion, and her elegant composure. Her beauty was dazzling. It had only been 5 years and Feng Wu had turned into such a beauty. Instantly, Yu Chun felt like an ugly duckling herself and she was overwhelmed by a sense of inferiority. Sister Yu Chun, do you think we should tell Granny Yu about this? Mingyu reminded Yu Chun. Yu Chun had always been an impetuous girl. She had only been able to make it to the senior maid position because she had a good mother. Granny Yu used to be Jun Linyuan's wet nurse. Hence, Yu Chun had always felt that she was superior to any other servant in the residence, and that she was the closest person to the crown prince. With her own maids, gradually, she began to consider herself a noble lady. And that was why she was bold enough to challenge Feng Wu. Narrowing her eyes, Yu Chun charged at Feng Wu and yelled, "You're that daughter of the Feng family?" Yu Chun had been Jun Linyuan's maid since she was little and Feng Wu had met her before. "What? I'm too pretty after 5 years for you to recognize?" Feng Wu said with a half-smile. Feng Wu had nothing nice to say to this girl, who had been drooling over her master since childhood and who was talking to her with such animosity. Those words successfully shut Yu Chun up. Flames of jealousy surged out of Yu Chun's eyes and she screamed, "You slut!" Feng Wu was never known for her good temper, and she certainly wouldn't stay silent when someone insulted her like that. Smack! Feng Wu slapped Yu Chun. It was quick, accurate, and very hard. It made Yu Chun spin like a top. No one had expected Feng Wu to hit Yu Chun all of a sudden. Everyone was astonished. "How dare you hit me?" Yu Chun was furious. Her contempt for Feng Wu was genuine. The Feng clan? That declining family was nothing compared with the crown prince. Feng Wu? She was a genius, but she was useless now. She was nothing to His Royal Highness. Just like how others addressed Chong-san as General Chong, other young ladies would fawn over Yu Chun when she went out. How dare this shameless Feng Wu hit her? Chapter 385 She's Fierce. Chapter 385 She's Fierce. I didn't dare. I did hit you. Feng Wu smirked. How dare a little maid be so arrogant toward her? Nice. Very nice. Covering her cheek with a hand, Yu Chun snorted. Because she was one of the 4 senior maids of the crown prince, she had always been fawned on when she went out. Even Zuo Qingluan, the eldest daughter of the Zuo family, addresses me as Sister Yu Chun. Who the hell do you think you are? Yu Chun pointed at Feng Wu. You'll see what happens when you offend me. Take her. Yu Chun gave a wave of her hand. The dozen or so young maids behind her rushed out, trying to take Feng Wu down. Feng Wu's eyes flickered and she grabbed the dishes on the table. Thump, thump, thump. All the dishes and plates were smashed onto the maids' heads. Crash. The maids were hit before they could even get close to Feng Wu. Their faces were covered in blood and it was a shocking sight. Yu Chun was astonished. You worthless piece of shit. How dare you do that in the crown prince's residence? Grabbing a broomstick, Yu Chun charged at Feng Wu. Feng Wu only smiled. Looking down at the dishes she had cooked, she gave a wave of her hand. Thump, thump, thump. All 5 dishes landed on Yu Chun's head. Feng Wu had made Sichuan cuisine and the dishes were all spicy and hot red. And now Yu Chun's head was covered in chili peppers. With the blood and the red peppers, it looked as if Yu Chun's head had been cracked open. The red was dazzling. And the chili peppers got into her wound and she trembled in pain. In the main hall, the proud crown prince reclined in a rocking chair with a book in his hands. He seemed to be absorbed in his reading. Feng wanted to remind his master that he hadn't turned a page in 10 minutes. Feng Wu's face kept popping into Jun Linyuan's head. She was accusing him one moment and glaring at him the next. He was reminded of her soft lips and he couldn't take it anymore. Tossing the book aside, Jun Linyuan looked up and met Feng's knowing eyes. What are you looking at? The teenager snapped. Feng sighed inwardly. The crown prince was so self-disciplined and so good at maintaining his concentration that no one could affect his mood. But that was before. He couldn't even focus enough now to read a book, and his emotions were written all over his face. Sigh. Feng decided to remind his young master a little. Your Royal Highness, Miss Wu, is a rather nice girl, isn't she? No, she's not. Jun Linyuan glared at Feng and snapped, she's so short-tempered, as thin as a stick, stubborn and ungrateful. Feng listened in silence to the crown prince's complaints. If she's really that awful, why do you keep going back to her? Chong San had noticed Yu Chun charging into the small kitchen with her minions, and came to inform Jun Linyuan. He heard the crown prince's criticism before he walked in and he was dazed. So, His Royal Highness really didn't like Miss Feng Wu. But Mr. Feng was telling a completely different story, so which one should he believe? Chong San was confused. Just then, the sound of something being smashed to pieces rang out in the small kitchen. Jun Linyuan, who couldn't stop saying bad things about Feng Wu, bolted up and dashed off. Chapter 386 Your Royal Highness, she says she's in love with you. Chapter 386. Your Royal Highness, she says she's in love with you. Jun Linyuan moved so fast that the gust of wind he created almost blew Chong San away. What happened? Feng frowned. Yu Chun gathered some maids together, and they ran into the small kitchen with weapons. Why didn't you come sooner? Where Feng Wu's safety was concerned, even someone as composed as Feng couldn't stay calm. Chong San was confused. But His Royal Highness doesn't like Miss Wu at all. You idiot! Feng hurried toward the small kitchen. Jun Linyuan arrived at the small kitchen to find it a mess. Over a dozen maids and grannies were scattered all over the floor, and Yu Chun was the only maid standing. Her head was covered in red peppers and her face was streaked with tears, blood, and the leftovers from the dishes, making her the most sorry picture. However, Jun Linyuan only looked at Yu Chun in passing before his gaze landed on Feng Wu. She was perfectly clean and unscathed, and looked completely innocent. Jun Linyuan's presence silenced everyone right away. No one dared to even let out a moan. All was quiet. They all looked at Jun Linyuan in disbelief. Why was His Royal Highness here? Feng rushed in and let out a breath of relief when he found Feng Wu unscathed. Phew. So many people would be dead if anything happened to her. Feng Wu's heart sank when she saw Jun Linyuan. She had been having so much fun dealing with these people that she had forgotten what she was here for. She had to make him happy, for only then would he give her what she needed. Look at this mess. Jun Linyuan would be so pissed. Cold air spread out from Jun Linyuan when his gaze landed on Feng Wu. He frowned and reprimanded her. What have you done this time? Yu Chun had been flustered by Jun Linyuan's cold glance. Hearing him speak to Feng Wu in that harsh tone, Yu Chun was relieved and she cried loudly. Your Royal Highness, sobbed, Miss Feng Wu was so rude to us, and she was so violent. Look what she did to me, you have to punish her. The others cried along once Yu Chun started and the room became very noisy. Blue veins popped at the corner of Jun Linyuan's forehead. Feng said in an impassive tone, keep crying and there will be blood. That successfully shut everyone up. Jun Linyuan frowned when he saw that the lower hem of Feng Wu's crimson skirt had been stained by the food. He took her soft hand and began to drag her out of the kitchen. Yu Chun's stomach lurched when she saw that and she had a bad feeling. She hastily cried out the first thing that came to her mind. Your Royal Highness. Miss Wu said she was in love with you. She said she would never leave you alone. Yu Chun knew that the crown prince abhorred those infatuated women that wouldn't keep their eyes off him, which was why she had said it. She wanted the crown prince to find Feng Wu repulsive. However, the crown prince's reaction was a little strange. He darted a look at Feng Wu and his eyes flickered. He even smiled a little. Did you really say that? The proud crown prince gave Feng Wu an indifferent glance. Of course Feng Wu hadn't. No, I didn't. Feng Wu raised her hands in protest. I never said such things. She's making it up. Yu Chun smirked inwardly but went on weeping. Miss Wu, you can't go back on your word like that. I'm not alone here. They all heard it, right? Chapter 387 You Dishonest Woman. Chapter 387, You Dishonest Woman. Feng Wu was exasperated. Damn that Yu Chun. Seeing Feng Wu's reaction, Yu Chun was over the moon. Feng Wu, you're dead. Jun Linyuan turned his gaze on Feng Wu again. Feng Wu waved both hands in denial. I really didn't say that. I promise. You did, you so did. All the maids and grannies who had been defeated by Feng Wu began to talk all at once. You said you didn't mind the annulled engagement. You said you would stay with His Royal Highness even if you could only be his concubine or maid. You also said you didn't mind His Royal Highness not liking you. You said all you needed was your love for him. You told us to keep our distance from His Royal Highness because you wanted him for yourself. We only fought with you because we couldn't stand it. Oh. Feng Wu stomped her foot in fury. That was pure slander. Bullshit. However, before she could say another word, she was dragged away by Jun Linyuan. Wait. Feng Wu stumbled after Jun Linyuan, but she still tried to explain to him in a loud voice, they made all that up. I'm being framed here. They. Thump. Jun Linyuan threw Feng Wu onto a cushioned chaise lounge. Thump. As soon as Feng Wu landed on it, Jun Linyuan fell on top of her and pinned her down. Jun Linyuan. Feng Wu felt like crying. She had never felt so aggrieved. She didn't even like Jun Linyuan. Why was everyone doing this to her? Looking down, Jun Linyuan saw Feng Wu scratching and kicking with all four limbs, which reminded him of a defiant wild kitten. To Jun Linyuan, Feng Wu's struggles felt more like a gentle massage. He kept his brooding gaze on her, so focused that he forgot to blink. Everyone told him that this girl was in love with him, and he could sense her secret admiration for him as well. However, she kept on denying it and she would fight tooth and claw whenever he got near her. What was wrong? The clever, scheming crown prince was at a loss for the first time in his life. While Jun Linyuan's mind wandered off, Feng Wu seized the opportunity to escape. She twisted swiftly beneath him and got down from the chaise lounge, then ran as far away from him as possible. She was on the alert the whole time. Seeing how jumpy the girl was, Jun Linyuan was very amused. She's doing one thing when what she wants is the polar opposite, Jun Linyuan told himself in satisfaction. She's doing everything to catch my attention. Well, since she's enjoying it so much, why should I expose her? Once he figured that out, Jun Linyuan smiled a little and waved at Feng Wu. Come here. Going to him was the last thing in the world Feng Wu wanted to do. The guy was always pinning her down or kissing her against her will. Why should she listen to him? Not only didn't she move any closer to him, she started looking for a way out of the room. So, you don't want the abnormal flame bead? Jun Linyuan said in an unconcerned tone as he sat on the chaise lounge and crossed his long legs. The cat-like girl was so sensitive. He would give her an excuse and she would come to him right away. Feng Wu hesitated at the mention of the abnormal flame bead. Go to him. Little Phoenix was excited as soon as it heard that name, and it wouldn't stop prompting Feng Wu. And your brother? Jun Linyuan added in a careless tone. Feng Wu clenched her fists. Damn it. She would so punch Jun Linyuan in the face if she was capable enough. The guy was a total bully. Chapter 388 Do you want a scar? You ugly girl. Chapter 388. Do you want a scar? You ugly girl. It was so frustrating to be ordered around like this. Feng Wu took a deep breath and clenched her fists. When she turned around, she was beaming. If she had to give in, she would make sure she didn't do it for nothing. She was going to get everything she wanted. Come here. Jun Linyuan beckoned Feng Wu over. Feng Wu was all smiles. Your Royal Highness. Jun Linyuan shuddered. That's too fake. Stop it. Feng Wu snorted. You're so demanding. Now my smile is too bright for you? Jun Linyuan took a first aid kit from Feng, opened a bottle of pale purple potion, dipped a cotton wad in it, and pressed it to Feng Wu's cheek. Feng looked away in silence. This was the first time ever that the crown prince was taking care of another person's wound. That hurts. Feng Wu drew in her breath and pushed Jun Linyuan's hand away. Don't bother. I recover pretty fast and scabs will form pretty quickly. June Linyuan stared at Feng Wu in surprise. Anyone else as beautiful as she was wouldn't stop taking care of their skin. This girl, on the other hand, didn't even blink when her face was scratched. He didn't know how that was even possible. And that offhandness was exactly what made June Linyuan hold her in high esteem. While June Linyuan was still trying to treat Feng Wu's wound, footsteps came from outside and someone fell to their knees with a thump and wailed, "Your Royal Highness sob?" It was none other than that Yu Chun. Feng Wu stole a glance in that direction and saw an elderly granny standing there with a straight face, while Yu Chun was on her knees. Feng narrowed his eyes, looking displeased. His Royal Highness's first attempt to please a girl had been interrupted just like that. "Your Royal Highness," seeing that June Linyuan wouldn't look at her, Yu Chun inched forward as she wailed until she was next to June Linyuan. "Your Royal Highness." June Linyuan tossed the cotton wad away, then gave Granny Yu a brooding glance. Yu Chun was exhilarated. Because her mother was the Crown Prince's old wet nurse, her family was treated differently in the residence. Even the Empress Dowager spoke politely to Granny Yu, so Yu Chun was sure that the Crown Prince would show her some respect. However, Granny Yu's eyes widened when she saw what was going on. The stern-faced Granny saw with her own eyes the Crown Prince treating Feng Wu's wound himself. Granny Yu felt as if a clap of thunder had exploded over her head. She couldn't believe it. Her master never liked women getting too close to him, to say nothing of him touching them. He would flare up when women got within 3 meters of him. But now he was treating Feng Wu himself? The Crown Prince. What did that mean? Didn't they say that Miss Wu wouldn't leave the Crown Prince alone? It didn't look like that at all. Feng Wu grabbed June Linyuan's wrist. "Stop it. It hurts." June Linyuan pulled a long face and glared at her. "Do you want to get a scar on your face? You'll be so ugly." "It's none of your business." "Shut up." Despite his harsh tone, June Linyuan was very gentle when he touched her face, as if he was handling the most delicate treasure. Granny Yu drew in her breath. This was bad. She hadn't gotten to where she was because of luck. Instead of appealing to June Linyuan for mercy on Yu Chun's behalf, Granny Yu dropped to her knees and said in a solemn voice, "Yu Chun offended her superior on purpose, which is a crime punishable by death. Your Royal Highness, Yu Chun needs to be severely punished." Feng Wu looked at the strict-looking Granny and her eyes flickered. The others missed it, but Feng Wu noticed Granny Yu darting a malicious look in her direction. However, June Linyuan was. Chapter 389 Zuo Qingluan? Chapter 389. Zuo Qingluan. Looking at Granny Yu, Feng Wu's eyes glinted coldly. Yu Chun was an imbecile, but not her mother. Granny Yu had both the guts and the brain. It wouldn't be wise for Feng Wu to make an enemy of her. However, since Yu Chun had decided to work against Feng Wu, there was no way around it. Yu Chun looked up in surprise when she heard Granny Yu's request. "Mother, I suggest a punishment of 80 lashes with the cane. If your Royal Highness will give the order, please," Granny Yu said in an even voice. Caning. 80 lashes. Yu Chun thought she was going to lose her mind. "Mother. Your Royal Highness, I would like to request the punishment be executed immediately." Granny Yu was trying to figure out how important Feng Wu was to June Linyuan. June Linyuan's eyes flickered. "Go ahead." Those 2 words astonished everyone inside and outside the room. Zhanxia was outside, but she heard that cold voice. Caning Yu Chun 80 times immediately. Go ahead, go ahead." Zhanxia clenched her fists so tightly that her fingernails almost dug into her palms. His Royal Highness always covered for his own people whatever their faults. As Granny Yu's only child, Yu Chun had practically grown up with his Royal Highness. However, even with that history, Yu Chun was still nothing compared with Feng Wu, the ex-fiancé. Who was this Miss Wu to his Royal Highness? June Linyuan's instruction immediately silenced all the servants in the residence, and everyone held their breaths. "Isn't 80 lashes a bit too much?" Tugging at June Linyuan's sleeve, Feng Wu frowned. June Linyuan darted a look at Feng Wu. "How many then?" 60. Feng Wu smiled. June Linyuan stared at Feng Wu. "Make it 60, all right? She'd be dead after 80 lashes, Feng Wu said light-heartedly. Everyone kept their silence and lowered their heads, but their ears pricked up. Miss Feng had just touched a sore spot. There were a lot of gloating grins and even Feng couldn't help but frown. His Royal Highness's word was the final verdict and he never changed his mind, not for anyone. Asking for a favor at this point would have serious consequences. No one made a sound. Just when a lot of people were waiting for Feng Wu's downfall, Linyuan waved his hand impatiently. Fine 60. Feng took the hint right away. There were too many people in the room for Linyuan's liking. Yu-chun didn't dare make a sound, for she knew the crown prince very well. Try to delay the punishment with crying, and Linyuan would make it 600 instead. But everyone stole glances at Feng Wu before they retreated. There was amazement, astonishment, and reverence in their eyes. Miss Wu had asked for a favor and nothing happened to her. How was that even possible? However, Feng cleared them all out before they could express their amazement. They were still bewildered when they got outside. That's not right. That's an understatement. That's so big. Chang-san was equally baffled. They only summoned the courage to talk once they were far enough from the main hall. What happened there? Why do all of you look like you've seen a ghost? It's unbelievable. Miss Wu is really something. Why do you say that? Yu-chun was going to get caned 80 times for offending Miss Wu, but Miss Wu appealed to His Royal Highness and His Royal Highness changed it to 60. Do you remember what happened with Miss Wu a while ago? As in Zuo Qingluan? Chapter 390. Be nice to me, okay? Chapter 390. Be nice to me, okay? That's right. Master Chang-san made a mistake and Miss Wu appealed to His Royal Highness on his behalf. Then, everyone turned to look at Chang-san. They all remembered. The punishment was 60 lashes to begin with, but after Zuo Qingluan's appeal, the proud crown prince made it 120. The flesh on Chang-san's back had been torn to shreds. It was horrifying. No one had thought less of Miss Wu, for she had only done it out of kindness. However, given the incident with Feng Wu today, they began to feel otherwise. Chang-san frowned. I heard from those at court that Miss Wu is going to marry His Royal Highness. Everyone turned to look in the direction of the main hall. Things were getting complicated. Zhanxia kept her silence the entire time, but the look on her face was indecipherable. Feng, you just won't go away. Feng Wu and Linyuan were the only two left in the room. The sound of Yu-chun being caned came from outside. Her screams were blood-curdling. Right now 2 guards held a cane each and they took turns hitting Yu-chun. Granny Yu stayed with Yu-chun and kept her cold gaze on those guards. The art of caning was quite complicated. If the cane was aimed at one's lumbar vertebra, it would take less than 5 strikes to paralyze a person for the rest of their lives. Under Granny Yu's stern gaze, the guards exchanged looks and struck with less and less force. After all, she used to be His Royal Highness's wet nurse, and she was in charge of the daily tasks in the residence. Back in the main hall, Feng Wu was deep in thought. From how hostile Linyuan had always been toward her, Feng Wu had expected Linyuan to stand up for his maid and try to punish Feng Wu. She had been ready for another row with the crown prince. However, Yu-chun turned out to be the one who got punished. Moreover, the crown prince had changed his mind because of what she said. Judging by the astonished looks the others gave her, could it be that Linyuan had never changed his mind for another person before? Can it be that Linyuan actually likes me? Since she had no one else to turn to, Feng Wu could only ask Little Phoenix. Little Phoenix, the unreliable advisor, shuddered. Have you lost your mind? What? Feng Wu was bewildered. Little Phoenix asked, does he talk to you nicely? Feng Wu shook her head. No, he's always grumpy. Little Phoenix then asked, has he ever said things like he likes you, or he finds you adorable? Feng Wu said, are you kidding me? He only says how much he doesn't like me. Little Phoenix rolled its eyes. So what gave you the idea that he's in love with you? You're overthinking it. Feng Wu rubbed her nose. But didn't he punish that maid? Little Phoenix snapped. That girl was insubordinate. What else was he supposed to do? Feng Wu said, but If he doesn't like me, why does he make me stay with him all the time? Little Phoenix threw a dirty look at Feng Wu. He's just enjoying himself. To him, you're like a spiritual pet. He'll cast you aside when he's busy and only come to play with you when he's bored. Isn't that what he's been doing? Was it? Feng Wu thought back to what Jun Linyuan had been doing and she saw the light. You're so right, Feng Wu sighed. Unaware that it had misled Feng Wu, Little Phoenix wiggled its colorful tail and gloated. You won't find a bird as clever as me every day. So be nice to me, okay? Chapter 391 A Trap. Chapter 391. A Trap. What are you thinking? Jun Linyuan noticed the expressions on Feng Wu's face. She had been bewildered at first, then looked conflicted, before her eyes lit up. Jun Linyuan frowned. Feng Wu rubbed her nose and looked at him funny. So he was taking her for a pet. I can see it in your eyes. Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu. I thought you were hungry? Feng Wu reminded him. And I thought you were going to cook for me? Feng Wu shrugged. I was, then your Yu-chun came in and everything got smashed. There's nothing left. Jun Linyuan frowned and looked displeased. Feng Wu grinned at Jun Linyuan. You know what? The cries out there are really loud. Is Yu-chun going to make it? 60 lashes is a lot. It'll be such a gory scene, wouldn't it? She had set up a trap there by changing it to 60 lashes. Jun Linyuan's frown grew bigger, and he looked even more unhappy. How about we go have a look? I'll get to play the savior if Yu-chun is badly hurt. Feng Wu rose to her feet after that. As Feng Wu walked out, Jun Linyuan had no other choice but to follow. In the courtyard outside the main hall, Yu-chun lay on her stomach on a bench with a piece of white cloth in her mouth. She was crying loudly and her eyes shone with fury and provocation when she saw Feng Wu come out. Feng Wu will wait and see. I'll kill you the first chance I get. Yu-chun swore inwardly. Granny Yu stood opposite her with her chin raised in an arrogant manner. Her face was stern and her eyes cold. Seeing Jun Linyuan and Feng Wu come out, the two guards holding the canes exchanged looks and both were flustered. How many now? Feng Wu asked. 59. One of the guards lowered his head and replied in a low voice. Jun Linyuan took one look at Yu-chun and his face turned as dark as a stormy sky. The temperature in the courtyard dropped. Seeing Feng Wu come out, Granny Yu blanched and she no longer looked so haughty. Feng Wu had appealed to Jun Linyuan on Yu-chun's behalf and in Granny Yu's mind, Feng Wu had shown the white feather. That had made Granny Yu reckless. She had been standing there to intimidate the two guards so that they would go easy on Yu-chun. Little did Granny Yu expect that the appeal had been part of Feng Wu's plan. Granny Yu had made a great show of actively seeking punishment for Yu-chun. However, she was taken by surprise when Jun Linyuan came out himself to check. Her cover was blown. The crown prince would discover how she had abused his trust and how pretentious she had been. Granny Yu's face darkened. This is great, Feng Wu let out a low amazed cry. I thought Yu-chun's skin would be in tatters after 60 lashes, but I don't see any blood. I guess I don't need to play doctor today. Both guards holding the canes panicked. They had neglected their duty in order to do Granny Yu a favor. Your Royal Highness, both guards broke into cold sweats. Jun Linyuan crossed his hands behind his back, and his countenance was colder than a winter morning. A storm seemed to gather above the courtyard. He then turned his sharp gaze on Granny Yu. Granny Yu dropped to her knees with a thump. Although Feng hadn't said anything so far, the look he gave Feng Wu was very appreciative. Miss Wu was such a bright girl. She had gotten Granny Yu to lower her guard by pleading on Yu-chun's behalf, and when Granny Yu manipulated the guards as she had planned, Miss Wu showed His Royal Highness what the old lady was really doing. Chapter 392, Don't Mess with Miss Feng Wu. Chapter 392. Don't mess with Miss Feng Wu. The truth was all out now. Granny Yu had been such a canny, experienced actress that even Feng hadn't been able to pick out any flaws. Feng had been about to remind Feng Wu to keep an eye on Granny Yu, for the old lady was very narrow-minded and would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Jun Linyuan kept his gaze on Granny Yu for a moment and the look in his eyes was bone-chillingly cold. He promptly left the courtyard after that. Granny Yu's stomach lurched and she almost passed out. She wouldn't be frightened if the Crown Prince had reprimanded or punished her, for that would prove that the Crown Prince still needed her service. However, he had left without a word. This was much worse than she thought. Granny Yu lowered her head and cold sweat soaked her clothes. She clenched both fists. What Feng Wu had done was very impressive. Feng darted an indifferent look at Granny Yu before making the announcement. Granny Yu has offended His Royal Highness. Lock her up. His Royal Highness will decide what to do with her later. Mother. Yu Chun hadn't seen that coming at all. All she did was challenge Feng Wu a little, but Feng Wu didn't get so much as a scratch while Yu Chun was being beaten up here. What was wrong with this world? Wasn't Feng Wu just a useless girl? Feng turned his cold gaze on Yu Chun and left another instruction. Yu Chun hasn't been properly caned. She gets another 60 lashes. This time it would be 60 lashes for real. Yu Chun fainted when she heard the announcement. As for you lot, Feng darted a glance at the 4 guards in charge of the caning. You're getting 60 lashes each. Questions? Of the 4, 2 guards were in charge of counting while the other 2 did the actual caning. They exchanged looks and all 4 of them let out breaths of relief. They had thought they would get the death penalty for this. What a relief. Feng looked around, his voice cold and emotionless. Gather all the servants here. Everyone is going to watch the caning. Feng was doing this for their own good. Many didn't know how special Miss Wu was to His Royal Highness, so Feng took the opportunity to let them see that. Yu Chun had pretended to pass out, but she fainted for real now. Feng gave a wave of his hand. Do it. Thump. The sound of canes hitting flesh resonated in the yard. All the servants watched and everyone was shaken. Granny Gong, the senior granny who was second only to Granny Yu, turned in the direction of the main hall with an indecipherable look in her eyes. The caning was a great lesson, and she now knew that Miss Feng Wu wasn't someone they could mess with. Not only that, they had to show her respect and dote on her. In the main hall, Linyuan sat there still emanating a cold air. Feng Wu sat next to him and would look up at him every now and then, but Linyuan kept his silence, his face livid. Feng Wu looked out the window. It was getting dark and she couldn't stay here overnight. Linyuan. Feng Wu poked his arm with a finger. The Crown Prince ignored her. Sir. Feng Wu poked his arm again. The Crown Prince ignored her. Your Royal Highness. Feng Wu poked his arm again. Linyuan finally darted her a haughty look. Are you mad? Feng Wu forced a smile. Linyuan had everything she desperately needed. Her brother, her abnormal flame bead, and her broken star piece. She had no choice but to fawn over him. Of course Linyuan had figured out the trap Feng Wu had set for Granny Yu back there. Linyuan was appeased slightly after Feng Wu moved a little closer. He stared at Feng Wu. I'm hungry. I'll go cook for you. Feng Wu dashed off right away. Seeing how hasty the girl was, Linyuan smiled as Feng Wu ran off. Chapter 393 What now, Your Royal Highness? Chapter 393 What now, Your Royal Highness? All 10 dishes were bright red in color and Feng Wu set them out on the table. After Granny Yu's imprisonment, Granny Gong was now in charge. Granny Gong had learned that Feng Wu wasn't someone they could afford to offend, so she entered the kitchen with a bright smile. She spotted the spicy dishes as soon as she set foot inside, which made her eyes flicker and the corner of her mouth twitch. Miss Wu. Granny Gong smiled brightly and her voice was warm and kind. Do you need anything? I brought maids with me and they're at your service. Seeing that Feng Wu was cleaning up after she was done cooking, Granny Gong said in a hurry, Oh God, Miss Wu, that's not befitting a young lady. You'll hurt your delicate hands. Xiangxiao Bei, don't just stand there. Xiangxiao and Bei rushed over, got Feng Wu away from the sink, and took over the cleaning themselves. Feng Wu could tell that Granny Gong was doing this out of kindness, so she gave the granny a smile and said, Shall I serve the dishes then? Granny Gong wouldn't have let Feng Wu do it, if it wasn't for the intimidating air the Crown Prince was giving off. She didn't dare enter the main hall herself, let alone any of the other maids. Miss Wu was the only one His Royal Highness would be happy to see. Hence, Granny Gong replied with a smile, of course. Miss Wu, please don't hesitate to give us instructions if you need anything. Feng Wu gave her a nod, then went off to serve the dishes. After Feng Wu left, Xiang Cao asked in bewilderment, Granny, do we have to be that polite to Miss Wu? Even the servants of the Crown Prince's residence were considered superior figures when they went out. As the most senior granny in the residence, Granny Gong was so influential that even someone like Mrs. Yan would try to befriend her. Granny Gong cast a stern look at Xiang Cao. You girls know nothing. You don't have to understand, but just remember this. Miss Wu is always right. But, Bei said hesitantly, even if His Royal Highness favors Miss Wu, Miss Sua is still going to be the one he marries in the end, isn't it? So, was it wise to take Miss Feng Wu's side now? Granny Gong looked at each maid in turn. Although she couldn't put all the pieces together yet, Feng could. That steward knew better. Miss Sua, well, I'm not sure that the marriage will take place after all. Anyway, just make sure you never offend Miss Wu from now on. Granny Gong said in a warning tone. His Royal Highness's attitude aside, Feng Wu's own cleverness alone was enough to impress Granny Gong. After some thought, Granny Gong decided to go have a look at the main hall. In the main hall, Feng Wu had squeezed all the dishes onto the table and she asked Jun Linyuan in a cheerful tone, so happy now? Jun Linyuan was still slouching on the chaise lounge and he gave Feng Wu an indifferent look. It's all set. Didn't you say you were hungry? Come here and eat, Feng Wu prompted. However, the Crown Prince only leaned back, rested his head on his hands and stared at her. What now, Your Royal Highness? Feng Wu hurried to his side like a butterfly and took him by the arm. Quickly. It won't taste as good if the food gets cold. I'm not doing it for the third time. Hurry up. Jun Linyuan let Feng Wu pull him to his feet and followed her to the table. In a corner of the room, Granny Gong and Feng exchanged looks. Feng raised an eyebrow. What did I tell you? Granny Gong nodded. She saw it now. No one else would dare persuade His Royal Highness when he didn't want to eat, and they wouldn't have succeeded even if they had been daring enough to try. Chapter 394 Sad Eyes. Chapter 394 Sad Eyes. Feng Wu pressed Jun Linyuan down into his chair at the table, then smiled at him with her palms together. Eat then give me back my brother. Jun Linyuan frowned and stared at Feng Wu. Feng Wu was confused. What? You don't like the food? But you haven't tried any of them yet. How do you know you don't like them? Jun Linyuan kept staring at Feng Wu with his bright, black eyes and his lips were pursed in a thin line. After a long moment, he gave her an aggrieved look. The apron. Feng Wu smacked her forehead. They had eaten at her place before, which was why she had the aprons. Where was she supposed to get one here in the Crown Prince's residence? Feng Wu shook her head. Don't you change your clothes every day? Throw them away if you get grease on it. Just eat. Feng Wu handed him a pair of chopsticks as she spoke. It was getting dark and without her at home, Lady Wang could make her beautiful mother's life miserable. Feng Wu wanted to get back ASAP. However, Jun Linyuan kept staring at her with sad puppy dog eyes. Recalling what a neat freak Jun Linyuan was, Feng Wu took a deep breath. Fine. I'll get you an apron. Granny Gong. Granny Gong stepped out right away. Could you fetch me an apron, please? Feng Wu said. Granny Gong went out in a hurry, and only let out a breath of relief when she was outside. His Royal Highness was really. Granny Gong had only had suspicions before. However, after seeing how the Crown Prince behaved around Miss Wu, Granny Gong was convinced that His Royal Highness was in love with the girl. Quickly. Get me an apron. Granny Gong sent a servant to fetch it. Although she was bewildered herself as to why His Royal Highness was so insistent on having an apron. Soon, the servants came back with 100 aprons. They were of every color, every pattern, and every material one could think of. Which one? Feng Wu asked Jun Linyuan. Jun Linyuan glanced at her. Up to you. And that was the most difficult choice. Feng Wu would rather he told her his preference. Well, if he said so. Feng Wu's eyes flickered teasingly. She picked a bright red one, then turned to Jun Linyuan with a grin. This one looks really nice. There you go. The look Jun Linyuan gave Feng Wu made her shudder inwardly. Fine, she would stop trying to make fun of him. The next one Feng Wu picked was of a light blue color that matched Jun Linyuan's clothes. This looks nice. The look in Jun Linyuan's eyes wasn't that cold anymore. So this one was fine. Put it on then. Feng Wu handed him the light blue apron. However, the crown prince just kept staring at her with those eyes as deep as bottomless pits. Feng Wu was bewildered and a little cross at that look on his face. She was really worried about what was going on back at home, and she really needed to go back now. She lost her patience. I fetched you the apron and picked the right color as you asked. What more do you want? Why is it so difficult to get you to eat? Feng was rendered speechless by Feng Wu's words. The muscles on Granny Gong's face twitched. That was so bold. Even she could tell how impatient Miss Wu was, and there was no way that the bright crown prince could miss it. His Royal Highness was so arrogant and short-tempered. Miss Wu was going to be in a lot of trouble. Chapter 395 Willingly? Chapter 395 Willingly. Just as Granny Gong started to worry for Feng Wu, Jun Linyuan said quietly, "Didn't you put it on for me last time?" Wait, did he sound aggrieved? It couldn't be. Granny Gong's eyes widened and she abruptly looked up at the Crown Prince. She thought she was overestimating His Royal Highness's patience for Miss Feng Wu, but those sad puppy dog eyes. Seriously. Granny Gong had thought that her young master was only mildly interested in Miss Wu, but as it turned out, she was so shocked that she lost her composure. Cough. Feng coughed into his fist to warn Granny Gong. And Granny Gong took the hint. She lowered her head right away, disappearing into the shadows. She shielded the excited look on her face from the others, but it did nothing to quell her astonishment. She finally figured out why Miss Feng Wu was able to get rid of His Royal Highness's long-trusted wet nurse with such a simple trick. Because His Royal Highness was crazy in love with Miss Wu, and one could say that Miss Wu was invincible. Granny Gong almost felt pity for Granny Yu. Meanwhile, things weren't going smoothly for the young couple at the table either. Taking a deep breath, Feng Wu fought back her anger. As much as she was eager to get back home, she knew perfectly well that Jun Linyuan could easily keep her here forever. She pulled Jun Linyuan to his feet. Fine, I'll put it on for you. Raise your hands. Now put your hands through here. I'll tie the strings into a bow. Is that it? Feng Wu didn't walk around Jun Linyuan to tie the bow, but put her arms around him. And it looked like she was hugging Jun Linyuan voluntarily. Feng and Granny Gong quickly lowered their heads after a brief glance. That one look was enough to frighten them out of their wits. The smile on His Royal Highness's face and that satisfied look in his eyes. This was the first time they had seen the Crown Prince this way after working for him for so many years. That was it. Their Crown Prince was hopelessly in love. Feng and Granny Gong both smiled wryly. Feng Wu had no idea of any of this. After tying the apron on, she grinned at Jun Linyuan. Your Royal Highness, are you ready to eat now? Jun Linyuan glanced casually at the table. Last time, Feng Sun and the others had been all over the food, but now, he had everything to himself and little Feng Wu had made all the dishes for him alone. The Crown Prince raised his chin in satisfaction. My hands hurt. Blue veins popped at the corner of Feng Wu's forehead. Why was it so difficult to get him to eat? Taking a deep breath to fight back her fury, Feng Wu put on a perfectly sweet smile. Your Royal Highness, what are we going to do about that? Jun Linyuan gave Feng Wu a half-smile. I'm not happy if I don't eat. And when Jun Linyuan wasn't happy, he wouldn't give her the things she needed. Feng Wu smiled even more sweetly to the point that it looked cloying. So, Your Royal Highness, shall I feed you? Jun Linyuan raised his chin arrogantly. That won't be necessary. He was being very difficult again. Feng Wu took Jun Linyuan by his arm. Your Royal Highness, please let me feed you. Jun Linyuan said haughtily no. Your Royal Highness. Despite her frustration, Feng Wu made herself look very eager as she said, Your Royal Highness, it'll be my great honor to feed you. Would you grant my request, please? Chapter 396 You Dummy. Chapter 396. You Dummy. Jun Linyuan glanced at Feng Wu unhurriedly. You want to do it? Feng Wu's eyes twinkled and she nodded repeatedly in an ingratiating manner. Yes. Yes, of course. The Crown Prince sounded reluctant. Well, fine. Could it get any more astonishing than this? Granny Gong's entire face was twitching. What happened to His Royal Highness? Who was this person and where was the Crown Prince she had known for nearly 20 years? And did Feng know about this? Granny Gong darted a glance at Feng. Feng smiled bitterly. Well, he was as shocked as she was. Jun Linyuan didn't make it any easier for Feng Wu as he ate. He took his time and the meal lasted 2 hours. Seeing the 10 empty plates on the table, Feng Wu was slightly satisfied as well. She said proudly, I see that you really enjoyed my cooking. However, Jun Linyuan only said arrogantly, says who? Excuse me? All the plates were empty. However, Feng Wu had figured out what Jun Linyuan's temperament was like by now, and she nodded right away. That's right. Your Royal Highness doesn't like my cooking at all. I had to force you to finish everything. That was more like it. Jun Linyuan snorted. Your Royal Highness, are you happy now? Feng Wu looked out the window. The sun had set and it would be too late if she didn't leave now. I need to take a walk. Jun Linyuan rose to his feet and walked out of the room. After a few steps, he turned around with a frown, since Feng Wu hadn't followed him out. Feng Wu rubbed her forehead. What did she ever do to deserve such an unreasonable crown prince? However, after everything she had done, she couldn't give up now. Hence, Feng Wu followed him out in a hurry and walked behind him. After the young couple left, both Feng and Granny Gong sighed in relief. His Royal Highness is. Granny Gong was still quite shaken. Was that really His Royal Highness? That wasn't an impersonator or something. Feng rolled his eyes. Woman, what the hell are you thinking? Feng said grumpily. Have you seen His Royal Highness behave this way around anyone else other than Miss Wu? Recalling the imprisoned Granny Yu, Granny Gong straightened her face and shook her head. His Royal Highness was the same toward everyone else. Relentless, overbearing, and merciless. Miss Wu is the only exception. So, His Royal Highness is really in love with Miss Wu? Shush! Feng cautioned Granny Gong. We don't have to point out everything. Got it? Yes, of course, Granny Gong grinned. I always thought that His Royal Highness was too cold. He didn't even feel human. I thought he was going to be lonely forever, even if he got married. Seeing how childish he is around Miss Wu, I find him much more endearing this way. He's like a normal human being now. Granny Gong was over the moon. She had decided that she would be very nice to Miss Wu from now on, and she would make sure that everyone else in the residence did the same. The Crown Prince's residence was a vast place and Jun Linyuan was walking very fast. Feng Wu was having a hard time following him. Jun Linyuan stopped abruptly. Bang! Feng Wu bumped into his back, which almost gave her a nosebleed. You dummy! Jun Linyuan brushed Feng Wu's hand away from her face and he looked flustered. He raised his voice without realizing it. Are you alright? Did you break your nose? An idea struck Feng Wu. What if? Chapter 397 Burst into Tears. Chapter 397 Burst into Tears. An idea struck Feng Wu. Jun Linyuan had been refusing her the things she needed, but what if she showed the white feather now? Feng Wu decided to put her sense of shame aside in order to get those things back from Jun Linyuan. Putting her hands over her nose, she let the tears come to her eyes. It hurts. Jun Linyuan glowered at Feng Wu. Why did you bump into me? Are you an idiot? After that, he picked her up in his arms and headed back toward the main hall. There were servants everywhere in the residence. Naturally, they stayed out of Jun Linyuan's way when they saw where he was going. However, they saw everything anyway. And they watched in disbelief. Miss Wu was being carried. By their crown prince? In both arms. Xiangxiao and Bei, the two maids under Granny Gong, covered their mouths in astonishment. They hadn't thought much of Granny Gong's order until they saw what was going on now. Oh my God! His Royal Highness! Xiangxiao and Bei exchanged looks and both saw astonishment in each other's eyes. His Royal Highness is so, and Miss Feng Wu is. They had never seen His Royal Highness like this after working in the residence for so many years. Xiangxiao and Bei weren't the only ones shocked. Zhenxia was as astounded as everyone else. She was standing under an eave and she stared at what was going on with a desperate look in her eyes. She bit her lower lip until it bled. She had sent 2 letters already, and now it was time to urgently send the 3rd one. Miss Zuo Qingluan had to come back to the imperial capital. Feng Wu knew none of this. Her head had gone blank after Jun Linyuan picked her up. She forgot to breathe. What was wrong with Jun Linyuan? However, since she was playing the weakling here, she couldn't struggle, or she would give herself away. She had made her bed, so she had to lie in it. It was so embarrassing that Feng Wu wanted to bury her face in her hands. However, she was soon over it. On second thought, since she was playing the role, she would make sure she didn't do it for nothing. Jun Linyuan had carried her back to the main hall, while Feng Wu was turning all the options over in her head. Get me the first aid kit. Blue veins popped on Jun Linyuan's forehead when he saw the blood running down from Feng Wu's nose. It doesn't hurt that bad, actually, Feng Wu said feebly when she saw Jun Linyuan's livid face and the frightened servants. Quiet. Jun Linyuan glowered at her. Why didn't you look up? Were you looking for wallets on the ground? Feng Wu wailed, I was thinking about other stuff. Jun Linyuan snapped. What could make you forget where you were going? Feng Wu sobbed. Poor kid. What did he do to deserve this? He got snatched away just like that. I don't know how he is now. I don't even know if he's still alive. My mother can't sleep at night and she weeps whenever she thinks of him. Feng Wu grew up watching her beautiful mother sobbing and weeping, and she could mimic it perfectly. Moreover, she was always such a fierce girl around Jun Linyuan. Showing weakness now had a great effect on him. Feng Wu had only been pretending to cry in the beginning. However, she was reminded of Feng Xiaoqi's situation and her tears became genuine. Jun Linyuan stared at her. Chapter 398 Jun Linyuan, you yelled at me. Chapter 398 Jun Linyuan, you yelled at me. Blood smeared her face, the rims of her eyes were red, and tears rolled down her fair cheeks. For the first time in his life, Jun Linyuan knew what pity felt like. Hey, Jun Linyuan gave Feng Wu's smooth cheek a gentle poke. Feng Wu ignored him and went on crying. She had no idea what she was crying over. She just felt very sad. Jun Linyuan poked Feng Wu in the shoulder and said hesitantly, don't cry. However, the more he tried, the more Feng Wu was reminded of what Jun Linyuan had put her through since they met, which only upset her further and she cried even harder. Jun Linyuan was dumbfounded. Growing up, he had kept girls from getting too close with his emotionless face and haughty demeanor. Never had he tried to comfort a girl. He had no idea what to do. For the very first time, the crown prince was at a loss. He quickly glanced at Feng. Feng, the answer to all questions, stood there with his eyes lowered, as if he was in a trance. From everything Jun Linyuan had done to her, to the broken star piece, then to her beautiful master, the longer Feng Wu thought about it, the more aggrieved she felt. She sobbed so hard that she could hardly breathe. Jun Linyuan had to admit that Feng Wu's tears brought out all the pity in him. Fine. You want Feng Xiaoqi, right? Jun Linyuan rubbed his forehead. Feng went out before Jun Linyuan could finish his sentence, and he came back shortly afterward with a 12-year-old boy in one hand. Sister. Feng Xiaoqi was thrilled to see his big sister. He dashed toward Feng Wu like a cannonball and threw himself into her arms. Feng Wu was still lost in her grievances when Feng Xiaoqi jumped into her arms. Her eyes lit up. Xiaoqi, are you all right? Are you hurt anywhere? Were you ill-treated? Jun Linyuan rolled his eyes. Exactly how cruel did she think he was? Once the initial excitement receded, Feng Xiaoqi recalled the state of anxiety he had been in lately, and he burst into tears as well. Sister. Brother. The two wrapped their arms around each other and cried even louder. Jun Linyuan was speechless. Feng Wu. Keep crying, I dare you. Jun Linyuan scolded. Make another sound and I'll kill Feng Xiaoqi. Before Feng Wu could say anything, Feng Xiaoqi was intimidated by the crown prince's manner, and he stopped crying right away. Feng Wu paused for a brief moment and stared at June Linyuan with her red-rimmed eyes. Her long eyelashes were wet with her tears, which only accentuated her impeccable beauty. She had tried pleading at first, but to no avail. However, as soon as she was in tears, June Linyuan had given Feng Xiaoqi back. So the guy had a weak spot for her tears. Once Feng Wu figured that out, she started crying again. Only this time she was faking it. She hurled accusations at June Linyuan as she howled. "You yelled at me. June Linyuan, you yelled at me." Had it been any other girl, the crown prince would have gotten Feng to throw her out already. But Feng Wu wasn't just any girl. Moreover, June Linyuan felt a throbbing pain in his chest as he looked at Feng Wu's tear-streaked face. He was overwhelmed by a strange, suffocating feeling. June Linyuan rubbed his forehead. He hadn't meant to. Feng Wu wailed and whimpered until her whole body trembled. Even Feng Xiaoqi was frightened by her reaction. Taking Feng Wu's hand, he said, "Sister, are you all right? Don't be upset, sister. Gosh, my sister's passed out." Well done, little brother. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.